please. Dear Lord, provide us the strength and wisdom to help us make good, positive decisions for the county today. And thank you for this beautiful March day. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's see, we'll have our first call out to the public. A member of the public may address the board after receiving recognition from the chairperson and giving his or her name. Public comment shall be limited to a period set aside at each meeting for such purpose, and each speaker shall have the floor for no longer than 5 minutes unless the board grants an extension. Board of Commissioner rules and procedures and bylaws 5.13-3, and we also ask you to be respectful. With that said, anyone wish to address the board at this time? Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Mara, and I am a person in long-term recovery. And what that means is I have 8.5 years sober for substance abuse. I am here to address you all about taking away our treatment courts. Our treatment courts are amazing. If it wasn't for the family treatment court program, I wouldn't be standing here today. I'd either be jailed, I'd be dead. I wouldn't have custody of my children. I have custody of 4 of my children. They're doing amazing. We have an open communication relationship, so they get to learn about everything that I have been through as well. Our treatment courts, we have 74 people in our programs right now. That includes drug court, the preservation track, and the family treatment court program. We're helping hundreds of people. We help them with their mental health. We send them to Lifeways to do screenings to get them balanced on their meds or whatever they need. Then we can address their substance abuse problems. And of course now, since I was a menace in society, now I am not. I actually get to work for the family treatment court program, and it's an amazing program. We get to help people and place them in jobs. We do daily screening with these people. It keeps them out of jail, so our jails are not overpopulated. We do the best we can with that. I just know that it's a really good program, and I'm a person to be able to say that we're an amazing program. A lot of the communities and a lot of the counties are going to treatment court programs, not just statewide, but nationwide. And instead of taking away our programs and being part of the problem, let's be part of the solution. And that's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board? We do have another public comment at the end of the meeting.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to talk about my unconstitutional and unlawful arrest. I was illegally arrested, illegally charged, and maliciously prosecuted and used as a political pawn due to the infighting between the factions. The people and the public officials involved all were from Mr. Leininger's faction. My bond was $272, $22 for fingerprinting, and 10% of a $2,500 bond, which was $250 for a total of $272. My charges were dismissed, but I was only refunded $225. That's a $47 difference for no crime, no criminal intent. That money should be refunded to me as it was unconstitutional, and that money should come out of Neil Brady's budget for his incompetence and his unethical behavior, for the deprivation of my civil rights under the color of law. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? All right. consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Do I have support? Thank you, Steve. Any additions or corrections to the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 4 with 1 absent. Correspondence is listed. Any comments on correspondence at this time? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Support.
I will add that Jennifer Crabtree is going to be here instead of Troy Reel this morning as far as ISD. Let's see, Allison Grimm, I believe, is here for the farmer's market. And I am going to yield time under my report for Matt Word to address us on the drains. Is there any other additions or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 4 with 1 absent. That brings us up to Jennifer. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jennifer Crabtree. I'm a special education supervisor at the ISD, but I also have the privilege of supervising our school mental health team. Today with me, I have one of our school mental health workers, and I'll let her introduce herself as well.
I'm Melissa Norris. I work primarily at Hillsdale High School and Davis Middle School. I'm one of the 10 providers in the county, so I was just here as representative if you had questions kind of generally about what we do. I'm sorry, what was your name again? Melissa Norris. Thank you.
So Mr. Reel asked that we give a brief update and explanation of what we do when we say school mental health services in the school system. So right now we do have school mental health providers such as Melissa assigned to each local school district. Some local school districts have the opportunity, well, all districts have the opportunity, but some have chosen to also contract us for additional time. The time that they have provided for, or that they have to them for providers is based on their per pupil counting. So for every 600 students, they get 1 school mental health provider. So to give you a brief explanation of that, for Hillsdale Community Schools and Jonesville Community Schools, there are 2 full-time practitioners. For some of your smaller districts, such as like Pittsford area schools, they have a provider that is there for 3 days a week, just to give you an explanation of what that looks like. They do a wide range of services. Part of the grant that funds some of the services has to do with providing multiple services throughout the school day. So they have supports for social emotional learning curriculums. They give supports with consulting with classroom teachers on interventions that they can provide in the classroom. They also have the opportunity to, with parent consent, pull out students and provide mental health services while the student is in the school system, because we know a lot of times access to care outside of school, there's multiple barriers for families, such as transportation, and various family concerns with getting students to and from treatment. So it allows an avenue while students are at school to receive their necessary sessions and treatments. They also have and provide group mental health services, such as relationship building, all the way to anxiety groups, things that are tailored to each individual student's needs. Is there anything else?
I guess just we really try to act as a bridge between services that are missing. So it's not, like she had referenced Lifeways earlier, so we may work with them if a student hits a more intense situation or something where they need more resources. Some So a lot of our referrals or information comes from like the, the school principals or the behavior interventionists, school support workers. And so we kind of try to act as that bridge in between for, mild to moderate services they might need and not have, unless you reference, contact with the parents, we always communicate with them first. Is this something that, you'd be interested in? Kind of touch base periodically about what we're doing with the students. And like I said, referring outside if it's something more intense that needs that support, again, a parent needs that.
Yep, and then providing that wraparound service if a student's needs are outside of what we can provide. We really wrap around Lifeways Community Mental Health with what they're providing and trying to see if we can try to implement the strategies that they're teaching the student and what that would look like in the school system, and we're that key point person between Lifeways, the family, and the school. So we also do, that type of service.
So I guess my question would be, Melissa, you're normally in a school 5 days a week.
Yep.
So just give us an example, I guess, of what your normal school day.
So my typical school day would look a little bit different. So if you talk somebody from a different district, it could sound a little different because, like she said, if Pittsburgh or Waldron or
Right.
Litchfield, they provide additional services. They've contracted out more service, so theirs could look a little different than mine. Mine is just through the IC, so primarily my day was just working with students individually. Obviously, our hot topic right now, through anxieties and different things. I would typically keep my kids on schedule, or they always know how to contact me, reach out if they need additional meetings. Could be, parent contacts, occasional meetings with parents, administration. But so typically I have a space in the school that students come throughout the day.
So it's pretty much one-on-one counseling.
Mm-hmm. In my role, yep. And I know, like I said, Pittsburgh provider, for example, because they have additional services, theirs could have include more behavior intervention, especially if you're in elementary versus I'm in the middle of high school. Then they might help more with those, services if they're, struggles in the classroom, helping pull kids out, those things. So it could look a little different, kind of who you're speaking with at that.
So our elementary providers do a lot more group services as well, so they'll pull out anywhere from 2 to 5 students at a time to do the same type of group curriculum that they're all working on together, and do individual services as well. All of our plans of care really guide what we're doing for individual students and what services they require. And we also do a lot of, you don't see that as much at the middle school and high school levels, especially the high school levels, but we do provide emergency services as well. So de-escalation, those type of things, calling of Lifeways mental health unit if it is needed, the crisis unit, but we provide a lot of services. So it all depends on the day. So we could be seeing one-on-one students and then we get pulled out to be helpful for during a crisis.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve?
How long have you been doing this?
This is my second year in this program.
Okay, have you seen a little increase in cases?
I had quite a few referrals last year, so it's the same probably as last year as far as the number of referrals.
Nothing dramatic.
No, not from this year last year. Again, probably would have seen a significant increase from a few years back, but just since the time I'm doing it, and it's about the same.
So our school mental health services started 4 years ago. At that time, we had enough funding for 1 provider, and then the following year, we had enough funding for 3 providers, and now for the past 2 years, we've had enough funding for 9 providers. So the amount of services we've been able to provide for the districts has greatly increased. So that has been another positive for the county as well. So each year, services have looked a little different depending on the amount of staff that we have been able to hire to provide services.
What's the source of that funding and what is your budget for it?
So right now, part of our funding is through the 31N grant from the state of Michigan, and our other funding for that, we have to have a cash match. So right now, our cash match provider is Lifeways Community Mental Health.
Question?
My questions will be more directed if they were at a school board meeting.
I'm sure they'd come and talk to you. Brent's on the Waldron School Board. So you might get an invite, it looks like. Any other questions for him? All right, thank you, Jennifer and Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yep. All right. Let's see, Allison. Good morning.
Morning. Allison Graham, Pittsburgh, Michigan, serving as the Hillsdale County Farmer Market Association Secretary. I'm here today on behalf of our president, Larkin Dash. The Market Association just wanted to thank the county commissioners for hosting us in the parking lot at the courthouse in the past. Due to the construction project, we're unable to have the market at the courthouse. We dealt with some issues last year, were just too big to be condensed down. That led us to go to City Council to ask for approval to use Howell Street, and they so graciously approved. So we will be utilizing Howell Street between 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. every Saturday, May 6th through October 28th for the market season. That being said, there's still a few things that we would like to present to the commissioners. The first being we would like to ask for permission to still use the corner of Broad Street and Bacon Street for our sign where we typically put it up, if that would be okay. And if we would be allowed to also incorporate possibly 1 or 2 small yard signs to direct the traffic down to Howell Street. We don't know if we're going to do that for sure. It was just a discussion point whether we need to update the sign. There is talk about possibly repainting, refurbishing the sign just to make it look a little neater. Some of the paint's getting faded. The other thing we'd like to ask in regard to that is how early we are allowed to put the sign up. Typically we try to take it down within at least a week after the end of the market season, but we're curious how early we can put the sign up prior to the start of the market season, which is the 6th of May this year. The second thing we want to, I guess, ask for is since we are allowed to be on Howell Street, the only thing that was brought up is in case of an emergency on Howell Street and we have to evacuate for whatever reason, if there's a sewer problem and that, you know, whatever comes about in the maintenance department, where would the market go to on that Saturday? And there was talk of possibly the Midtown lot, but we were wondering too if we would be able to utilize the north lawn in case of said situation. The other question in regards to the lawn is we have had a couple people come to us over the years, one of them being involved with the library, to come on one Saturday a year to do what they call a story walk. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. And typically we would house them in the gazebo at the courthouse, and we were wondering if, since we're on Howell Street, if we could put them on the front lawn, if that would work. And the second thing was that sometimes we've had some college kids come in to play music throughout the market on a Saturday. That's been like maybe 3 times this summer. And if that's something that they could also utilize the front lawn for, just because they won't have equipment like, you know, most of our vendors would. It's just them. The third thing is probably one of the most important moving forward for this season is since we are utilizing Howell Street, we are responsible for placing barricades on the ends of Howell at the corners of McCullum and Bacon. And originally the market was going to have to be responsible for purchasing, and the Hillsdale County Road Commission has donated the barricades for us to use for the season. However, we're going to need somewhere to store them during the week in between Saturdays, and we were wondering if there was any location where we could put them on the courthouse property to store them in between Saturdays.
Go ahead, Brad.
Thank you, Allison. I've actually already spoken with the facilities manager, and he was fine having up by the fence that's around the parking lot, so we get with Randy on that.
Okay.
In regards to the other use, and I'm really not speaking for the board, but probably the best process would be to figure out what dates that you want and speak with facilities manager Finley, so that, because we do have a number of different groups that use our grounds as well. Mm-hmm. So in the past, because we make a commitment and just for the rest of my fellow commissioners, that I was on the commission when the market first came to us. We've always dedicated our parking lot specifically for the entire season of the market, because that this is specific dates. Probably the best way to coordinate that would be with Randy, to let him know in advance, just to make sure that he doesn't have a wedding or other, because we have a number of different individuals that use our grounds. We have the Exchange Club that they do their project every year around Memorial Day, so consequently we do have other uses on the grounds, so it would be best to coordinate with him on that.
Okay.
And I know the farmer's market has filled out a form with Randy before, as far as, so that he knows your dates and times. And I'm sure he would ask that you fill out the form as far as, so that he can put it into the calendar as far as the use of that north lawn.
Okay.
So I personally don't have a problem with it. I mean, but it is a
Right.
facilities issue
Right.
that Randy does have that calendar of
Okay.
who's using it.
Right.
And will he also want a copy of like a liability release waiver? Because in the past, usually
Right,
Mark,
yeah,
every vendor's required to
exactly.
sign
Anybody uses
that.
our grounds.
Right.
Anybody uses our
Okay.
grounds, we just need to have that release of liability.
Okay.
Right. Yep. Oh, the other thing was a sign, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Allison? I think there again, get with Randy on that.
Okay.
I know he is, I believe either him or one of his staff have helped with that in the past. And there again, I don't see any problem, but, that'd be a facilities issue to get with Randy as far as placing it sometime before the 6th of May.
Okay.
And I'm guessing you want to put it up a week or two ahead of that.
We'd like to, yeah. If we can, yes. So,
There again,
We may have some, because there are some other organizations that utilize that particular area. I think the Kappa people do, and perhaps there's an autism awareness of that, or some other things that go on. So again, it would be a coordination with Randy.
okay.
and one of us can give him a heads up that he might even be in his office, this morning if you want to catch him on the way out.
Okay.
But-
All right.
Yeah, where he's at, he's downstairs down here.
Okay, I can find,
Yeah,
I know it's
down by
downstairs,
IT.
but, okay, all right. Do the commissioners have any other questions in regards to the market?
Just other than we're sorry that the construction has displaced the market. It's been a wonderful addition to our downtown, and all the merchants, they love having you there. The community loves having the market there. And we're glad that you were able to work it out with the city, that you can still be in the heart of the downtown, not that far away. And
Right.
we hope after our construction is back that the market will come back to our parking lot.
Okay.
We hope so too, that you'll at least entertain it. Although we are kind of hoping that they'll keep us on Howell Street, I'll be honest, but it's.
Well, if the city's okay with that, we're okay with it,
Right.
but,
Well, and it's, because it is packed down there on Saturdays. I mean, there's a lot of people that come through there, and
what you're saying is the market has grown.
a little bit, yeah. A little bit, so, yeah.
All right.
If you guys don't have any further questions.
Yeah, if you need any assistance with Randy, just holler at Brad or I and we can assist you.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Allison. All right. Gosh, this is strange. We're running ahead of schedule. Terry's here and you're ready.
All right.
So,
Good morning.
good morning, Terry.
I did not bring donuts, but I brought caramel popcorn.
Ah,
So it is our March for Meals. We do popcorn and dog biscuits. We make them in the kitchen. And then the money raised goes back to Meals on Wheels, and I didn't exclude you today, Marty. That's what you need.
where's my dog biscuits though?
I know, right? So let me get this out.
All right.
Quite a bit of items to go over today. In addition to the audit, our audit for fiscal year '23, I have included our March calendar, and do you want me to give you Doug's?
copy?
We'll put it in his mailbox.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
put it in his box, thank you.
Sure. So, before I have Dan LaRue, our finance director, with us today, along with Maggie Monroe, who is currently our deputy director / director of nursing, but in April will be moving into the executive director position. So, this is my last official county commissioner presentation as executive director for the center. You might be seeing me again because I probably will be helping with the low-cost housing that we'd like to see happen in the not-too-distant future. But several things I just wanted to bring to your attention. The first being, I know most of you know that during the ice storm, all those trees falling around, that the center, in cooperation with 911, emergency management, American Red Cross, opened as a disaster site from February 23rd to February 27th. It took 317.5 staff hours to cover all of the time spent welcoming Hillsdale County residents without power or in need of a shower or in need of warming to come into Perennial Park. We had 45 individuals who were sleeping with us, either in the respite care rooms or in the lift chairs, the 7 lift chairs, or air mattresses. We did have a visit from Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Yonker from the State Emergency Management. He was very impressed that our little county rose to the occasion and did a tour of the site, and he said, "What's your capacity?" And I said, "Well, we have a lot of rooms downstairs, a lot of the multi-purpose area. Our emergency generator worked like a charm. Special thanks again. That was a $280,000 piece of equipment that was raised through several donations and contributions, including Consumers Energy, which seemed to be the last person to get the power back on in the county. But nonetheless, it worked very well. It does run our entire facility. We had 322 individuals who came in for warming, and then another 68 who came in for showers throughout that period. So just a thanks to Tom Whitaker, the Hillsdale Community Thrift, the American Red Cross, some volunteers who said, "What can I do?" We had one lady who came in and she said, "I don't like to sit around." She was out in the Jonesville area, and so she ended up helping us pack our emergency meals to our Meals on Wheels clients. So that was just a wonderful collaboration, community partnership, that we are able to address emergencies in Hillsdale County. A few things we have new on the programs is we have a new Caregivers Cafe support group that we've had an interest in individuals necessarily outside of our Parkinson's support group or our Alzheimer's support group who are just in need of sitting around the table with other caregivers because it is a 24/7 role. So our new caregiver support group had our first one. It's going to be the first Tuesday of every month, and so the next one will be on April 4th from 1:30 to 3. Parkinson's support group will be meeting April 13th, and we've been very fortunate with our Parkinson's support group that is growing. Our speaker for our April 13th from 2 to 3:30 is Antoinette Talbot. And she is a writer and has done some children's books. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 47. So we're pretty honored to have her as part of our Parkinson's support group in April. Our radio lab, that's a kind of a conversion of what was our computer lab. We have several old radios that have been donated, so we now call it our radio lab. But we were in cooperation with the Hillsdale High School National Honor Society, able to offer assistance to understanding the smartphone. I should probably take it. I could probably learn something, but we had our first class in February, and while reservations are encouraged, not required, it was busting at the seams with 15 people. So the 3 high school students that came over to help with that, they're coming back on March 16th. That is 1 to 3. So if you need to figure out your smartphone and how to use it better, certainly you're welcome to join us again on March 16th from 1 to 3. At our Alzheimer's support group, that continues to grow. We will be meeting Wednesday, March 22nd from 3:30 to 5, and Michelle Fallons is the program coordinator for the Michigan Alzheimer's chapter, and she's coming down from Lansing this month to sit with the Alzheimer's support group and kind of share her knowledge and best practices. We do have new staff on board, a clinical coordinator, Joyce Har. She is a nurse, and she will be working with us 20 hours a week, helping out with our assessments and those types of things. And then our marketing communications coordinator, Grace Brzomley, hit the floor running yesterday. We have a lot of things coming up in March and early in addition to our programs, but our marketing communications person is going to be very helpful. You all have within you an invite to our 40th. We're celebrating 40 years as a private nonprofit at the end of this month on March 24th. We are not charging for that, but reservations are required. So it's limited to 125 people. So if you're interested in attending, please get your name in. And it's just a way to look over the growth. Contrary to popular belief, I was not there from inception. I did not come on board until 1989. So lots of good things on the plate for the senior center. We obviously renewed our 14-year senior millage, a strategic plan that is supposed to kind of guide us in the next 5 to 10 years, anticipated being done in June. Our 40-year celebration, our programs and services, and Maggie Monroe, who has been job shadowing me for a year, but really with the center for 5 years, is well prepared. I told her she's going to blow me out of the water with management because she knows technology much better. She's a younger generation and trying to move all those different things around and keep track. Yes, and certainly another daring leader, and I think just like me won't be afraid to share her concerns or her opinion moving forward when she comes and presents to the county commissioners. So, having said all that, I would like to, unless you have questions, the audit that you have in your packets, it says draft on it. The finance committee reviewed it and approved it, and so it will go to our general board meeting. They approved, finance committee met in February, and it will be presented at our March meeting for final approval. But the audit committee is the finance committee, is the executive committee, and they sat down with Steve Beischer from CHBW, who performed our audit. And so I am going to let Dan LaRue take the podium and hopefully answer your questions. And if he can't answer them, he can find the answer and get back to you. So.
Good morning. All right, just a couple things I want to point out for you guys. First thing is the auditor's opinion, and I'll just read it real quick. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of Hillsdale County Senior Services Center, Inc. as of September 30th, 2022 and 2021. And the changes in the net assets and its cash flow for the years then ended in accordance with the county principles generally accepted in the United States of America. And a couple other things I'd like to point out as well. Oops. Is on the assets page. As you can see, we purchased the land behind the center that goes all the way to Hallett. That's our going to be the location for our low-cost housing that we're planning in the future. And you'll see that the land increased by that amount on the asset sheet. And for the year, for 2022, we have a surplus of $43,000. Another point I'd like to point out too is on page 3, the liabilities and net assets. You'll see that our long-term debt is decreasing tremendously. We're on track to be debt-free by 2025, so that's a big win for us. And also in our net assets, under board designation, you'll see a huge increase there too. What we did is we took our 2021 surplus and designated that to certain funds, like a facility maintenance fund, operating reserve fund, a vehicle reserve fund, and health insurance as well. So in 2023, we implemented that health insurance that we haven't had for quite some time. So it's nice to be able to offer that. So that's all I'd like to point out. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, or after reviewing it more, give me a call and let me know if you have anything.
One key thing, Dan, and this is probably just because of the difference in the fiscal year between you and the county, we actually show that debt being paid off in 2024.
Oh,
Because I do believe that payment comes back to the county
yes,
in October of 2024, which is your 2025 fiscal year.
correct. Yeah.
So just point of clarification, the center will be
Debt-free.
free by December 31st,
2024.
underneath the current bond schedule that's in place.
Which is our 20, yeah.
Yeah,
Our
thank you.
fiscal year,
Good point.
October.
It's your fiscal year 25, so.
Good point. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for your time.
Any other questions? Not at this time. I think you got off easy, Dan.
Congratulations, Terry.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Is there any questions for Terry before we totally let her off? the
Or
hook?
Maggie, if you have questions for Maggie,
Or
she's
Maggie.
present as well.
Well, this is a record.
You might get out of here before noon today.
All right, thank you, Terry and Maggie and Dan. All right. Well, that brings us up to committee reports, and Steve, you're first on the list today.
Yeah, be a short one today too, how about that, huh? Well, I attended 2 of my township meetings, Moscow and Seville both, and everything's going well there. And Moscow has turned on the heat in their new building. And I talked to Patty briefly about training, and she is looking forward to doing some training out there for not only some of the firemen, but later on some EMT training. So they're getting excited about that, which they should be. Moscow needed a new fire department for a long time. I attended the senior center meeting on February 28th and realized there's a little turmoil going on out there, as there would be with any facility changing this many managers and workers. So I think when the dust settles, I think it'll be moving in the right direction under Maggie's leadership. And I'm looking forward to her first report at the commissioner meeting. We'll see how that turns out.
Be kind.
Okay, on March 8th, I went to the Michigan Works meeting in Chelsea, and it was mostly a meet and greet type of meeting as to who the people are that run that organization and what their individual responsibilities are. I was quite impressed with that whole organization on how they run it and how they manage it. Of course, this is my first time there, so but I did meet with some individuals after the meeting, and we had quite a discussion about some of the things in the workforce that are in a great need of repair right now. And also discovered there's a lot of money left on the table for local businesses if they want to apply for that money. They just don't. Nobody applies for it, so they send quite a bit of it back to the state. So I'm going to be meeting with some of the local businesses and see if we can't help some of them out on some of these programs that are available through this Michigan Works program. Whether they'll want to get involved in some of these programs for assistance and financial support or not, well, that remains to be seen. And one thing that Mark might be interested in is the next OMI meeting is scheduled for June the 5th in Bryan, Ohio, at the Annex Building. And that's me for today.
All right, any questions or comments for Steve? All right, thank you. Brad, you're up next.
Alrighty, we will start out with my 2 action items. Again with 23052, to the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we, your Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, recommend the purchase of a Zoll AED and wall mount cabinet for $1,945 and a Zoll AED trainer for $726 from Pro Safety Innovations Limited Liability Corporation, 61701 Creek Road, Niles, Michigan, 49120. Additionally, we recommend the purchase of a public bleeding control station with part number in the amount of $639.88 plus shipping from North American Rescue, 35 Tedwell Court, Berkshire, South Carolina. Further, we recommend the purchase of 20 Mega Mover patient movement devices from Boundary Medical, 5,000 Tuttle Crossing Boulevard, Dublin, Ohio, in the amount of $363. The AED and public bleeding control station are for installation at the Hillsdale County Youth Home. The AED trainer will be used for ongoing training of Hillsdale County employees in CPR and AED usage, and the Mega Movers will be added to the hemorrhage control cabinets which have been installed throughout all of our buildings. Further, the funds from this purchase shall be taken from the opioid settlement account, fund account 287-000-977.000, and I would move for adoption.
Support.
Thank you. So just a little backstory on this. When we purchased the 12 AEDs previously, evidently it came to our attention that the youth home was somehow missed in that. So consequently, we do need to have an AED in that building as well. And the hemorrhage control station, which we have trained all of our employees in, you may recall we brought in an outside training company to do that last year, had a couple of training sessions. So this would simply replicate the same equipment that we have in all of our other buildings. The trainer will be simply to allow, because I will have an additional resolution following this one, in regards to developing our own training program in-house. That should save us money in regards to that we won't be contracting with an outside provider, plus it will also give us more consistency as we have new employees join the staff of the county. So having that device to be able to use in component of that training. And the Mega Movers are just simply, basically think of them as a stretcher that you can move a patient on. So if we have a patient that is incapacitated, that they simply can be moved very readily and easily from one place in our building to another. And I would be happy to try and answer any questions.
Questions for Brad?
My concern, Commissioner.
I need a support, please.
I supported that.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
My concern, Commissioner, is long-term plan for what we have used for the opioid fund for. We haven't established that, and we seem to be piecemealing a little bit here, a little bit there of those funds. We don't even know for sure what our actual income is going to be into those funds going forward. And I know we've reached out to our council on that, haven't heard back from them. I know we've bought the AEDs for the other facilities. I'm a little concerned that we forgot one, but I believe that in the future we need to establish that plan for those funds and stick to it, and not be piecemealing one item to the next.
Agreed as far as the plan. And I was going to comment on this later, but I will now. Derek and Tim Dixon and myself were on a Zoom meeting with Amy Dulicki is her name, from MAC, and she's MAC has brought her on board to assist counties, and so she provided us with a boatload of links, which I think you've seen some of the links as far as trying to get her hands around this whole thing. So yes, we do need to establish a plan, and hopefully within the next month or so we can address that plan. That's the best I can tell you at this time, because there's so much information to go over as far as what, you know, the information that Amy provided us.
Yeah, and I will add to that, you probably have received emails from a number of organizations that are more than willing to help us, I'm sure, for an appropriate percentage fee in how we are going to allocate our opioid funds, because it is a fair amount of money. It does come in over a period of, I believe, 17 years is payout on it. We do, obviously, from the dollars we've already received, we do have money in hand that we can easily cover those things that we've already allocated for appropriate usages. We have seen lists. Commissioner Lanius, I know that you were a little more recent, but last year we did receive a multi-page list of appropriate usages for our opioid settlement fundings. Our Substance Use Disorder Coalition, we've had conversations in regard to how that we can set up a plan for the use of it in working in conjunction with our courts. There is a significant portion of the dollars that must be used for opioid-specific related remediation programs. There is also a percentage that can be used for general allocations. As I've spoken in the past, this particular usage, you can make a very strong argument that these products that we are purchasing, have purchased so far, are directly related, potentially, to a response to an opioid overdose. And so consequently, and same thing with the training that we have done with our employees, in both naloxone and Narcan administration, and also CPR and AED usage. So we can make a clear argument with them that they are an appropriate use of those funds. I am in complete agreement with you, Commissioner Langer, that we do need to develop, because it will be a 17-year payout. We do need to have a plan for them. At this point, we are simply trying to address some needs that we have in the county with a funding source that we have that is available to take care of those items that are necessary and needed, and they are an appropriate use of those funds.
Any other comments? I think we should have, I mean, how did we miss that building would be the question, but I'm glad we've caught it and now
Yeah.
we've got it, so.
Yeah, we asked and asked and asked, and how the building got missed. It was brought to my attention, it may have been there was a change in directors there as part of that process, and Roger Bildner left, Tim Dixon took over.
Right.
Sometimes things, there's just get bypassed, so.
Right. Steve, comment?
I'm a little behind the 8 ball on this opioid stuff and where the money's coming from and where it's going to. So for me, I want to see a plan. I want to see a plan laid out that we know where it's going.
So,
That's where I'm at with it, so.
Forgive me, I think right now we've received over 140,000 from them. And I forget the actual amount that we've expended, but some was expended last year.
yeah, it's probably, I would have to add the numbers up, but with the training that we've done, the AED purchases, the bleeding control cabs, we probably allocated $55,000 of it.
I will try it, I'll make a note, Steve, and send you, there's quite a list of things, but I'll send you some of the links that Amy has shared with us. I mean, this is all new to everybody, so every county is working through it, and fortunately, MAC has assigned somebody to specifically, assist the counties and help guide them. But as far as the monies,
The monies are coming from opioid class action lawsuits
correct.
against multiple different entities. Some of those suits have been settled, and through bankruptcy arrangements have determined the amount that each entity is paying and how those payments will be received. The one entity, the largest one so far, that's the 17-year payout. That money is going to come in. The state is going to keep, I do believe, 50% of those funds. The other 50% is going to be distributed amongst the counties, and then there's a formula that gets applied to that to determine how much each county will then get. And it's pretty much that formula will be applied to all of those funds that come in from that opioid, from those multiple different opioid settlements. And the last I looked at that one link, there was still 3 or 4 settlement agreements to be reached yet with some of those, in some of those class action suits. So the exact dollar amount that we may receive, we're not even sure what that potentially could be yet.
Well, and it varies too because of each settlement's different, and so the division of it's a little different. But the formula that Brent refers to, as far as the state distribution, was based upon paperwork that we probably compiled data 5 years ago and submitted it as far as, you know, what we knew through the courts, through the hospital, through emergency services, you know, the number of overdose cases and different data. There was quite a few forms to fill out that, so counties that actually filled out their information and submitted it through lawyers that were representing us, we actually get a little more through that formula because there's actual numbers to justify, you know, our percentage, if you will. Now, there are some municipal entities or counties that didn't actually participate in the lawsuit, so their percentage is a little lower.
Okay.
So, you know, we jumped on board, I think it was around 5 years ago, and signed it, you know, on with Bernstein and Novak, were the 2 law firms that, you know, represented us. So, but like Brent said, as these get settled, then they distribute the money. Now, the money that, about 50% of that major settlement, now I'm not sure on these minor, or, you know, the smaller settlements, but on that major one, about 400, I think it was around 400 million, if I remember correctly, went, you know, for distribution, and 400 million went to the legislative body. The legislative body still got to decide how that's going to get distributed. And we may be able to apply for that, you know, for programs.
Right.
But that's yet to be determined.
Right, and on that, I had conversation with a director of an EMS system. They're going to actually apply for some of those state funds to purchase another monitor for one of their other ambulances. So there's that avenue for our local municipalities to receive some of that funding from the state as well.
So that kind of gives you a brief synopsis, but I'll try and forward you some more stuff and then inundate you with it. Good reading material. Anyways, I think we probably need a roll call.
Commissioner Lanius.
I'm gonna have to say no this time.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing.
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger.
Yes.
And Commissioner Ingles absent.
And Madam Clerk, I did not hear Commissioner Lanius.
No.
Okay, he was a no, okay.
So it passes.
So it passes 3 yes, 1 no, and 1 absent.
All right.
Please
Moving
continue.
on to my next item. 23053 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners. We, your Public Safety and Judiciary Committee, recommend authorizing Hillsdale County Emergency Management Director Thomas Whitaker to form a team of county employees who will provide ongoing training for all employees of the County of Hillsdale in CPR and AED usage, stop the bleed, naloxone administration, and bloodborne pathogens. This team will provide training as required by OSHA and MyOSHA regulations. Additionally, the Emergency Management Director will oversee the record keeping of the completion of these trainings for all county employees in addition to regulatory compliance. Further, we recommend that it is a policy of the County of Hillsdale that all county employees are required to complete an initial training in these programs within 60 days of hire, as well as ongoing refreshers at intervals as required by OSHA and MyOSHA regulations. Individual exemptions may be granted on a case-by-case basis due to physical limitations of the employee, and this exemption will be noted in the individual's training record, and I would move for adoption.
Support.
Thank you.
Please continue.
All right, so just again, one of the things that we are trying to develop because of some different oversights, so to speak, that I've become aware of since rejoining the Board of Commissioners, is that we, in many cases, don't have particular ownership for a particular area. So consequently, and so to explain that, the AEDs that we had in the courthouse, we actually had 3 of them at one point. When I came back, we found we only had 2 of them. We had 3 cabinets, 3 stations for them. One of them had been repurposed to another area, and 2 of them had not been properly maintained. They had expired components in them. One had a failing battery. And so consequently, we did not have oversight. Same thing with our first aid kits. We discovered we had a number of expired supplies. So that then resulted in us refreshing, buying new first aid kits for all of our county offices. We have now gone through and implemented where we said, because it is a MyOSHA and OSHA requirement that employees be trained in CPR. So consequently, we have implemented a training program. This simply will then establish a way that we don't have to go to an outside vendor, that we will bring it in-house. Mr. Whitaker, we actually are in a good position with him because he is our first person in that position as emergency management director that is not only an EMS provider, he is a paramedic, but he is also an EMS instructor coordinator. So he has the credentials from the state of Michigan to be able to be an instructor, and so he is in an excellent position to establish that team to be able to do that. We do have already a number of people within county government. Our nurse at the jail, she is already doing some of this instruction for our sheriff's department employees. We have another deputy who is a CPR instructor. So we already have a number of people that are employees of the county. This simply will take and it will establish that team that Mr. Whitaker will make sure that their credentials are correct. We will have to affiliate with a training center. That training center will most likely be Reading Emergency Unit because they are the county training center for American Heart Association, so we will associate with them. That will actually be where our cards will be issued, so it will allow us then, because one of the things we found is we did not have, and we had some employees that actually wanted, for other things that they do outside of employment with the county, that they wanted a CPR certified card. So it will actually allow us to be able to issue those cards. So again, it creates a central point, someone who will have oversight of that training, that they will then make sure that those employees are in compliance with that, so that if we are ever audited by OSHA or MyOSHA, that we have those training records to show that they have done that. The bloodborne pathogens thing is actually not all of our employees are actually need to do that. The biggest issue would be people who might have exposure, such as our custodial staff, our sheriff's department employees, perhaps our maintenance department employee, other maintenance department employees beyond the custodial staff. But those employees then, probably some of our people within the court system, probation officers, people who do drug testing, things like that. Again, it is something that we need to do under MyOSHA. So this is simply creating, number one, a place where we're going to keep those records to show that we're in compliance, and also an ongoing team of people who will then create the training, be able to do the training for our people. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments?
Is there any additional cost associated with this?
The cost that we would incur would be, as far as an ongoing basis, would be if we had to add any additional instructors. It's going to be about $500 per individual to get them certified in AHA, American Heart Association, as an instructor. And then there would be a cost, probably about $10 per employee for every one of those AHA cards that we would issue. And so consequently, And beyond that, since they are already employees, it would simply be that they would be on the clock, it would be through regular time, so it would be the cost, they're already on the clock, but out of their department, that they would not be doing whatever the regular duties would be.
So how big of a team are we talking?
Probably 4 to 5 people.
Okay, okay.
And the biggest reason for 4 to 5, we probably would only need a couple of instructors at a time, but there will always be times when people would not be available for whatever reasons.
Right.
So,
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. I believe it passes with 4 with 1 absent.
Thank you.
Please continue.
All righty. First thing is we had the snowstorm a week ago, so Commissioner Wally's in my meeting with the medical examiner was rescheduled to March the 20th in Jackson, so we will meet with Dr. Kaysen then and hopefully be able to get some issues that we were having in that regard straightened out. I was unable to attend our rescheduled CAA board meeting. Again, that was weathered out as well. And so consequently, I had some previous commitments on that Thursday that they were scheduled for, and so consequently I was unable to attend. Medical control met on March the 2nd. I did share with all of you by email the minutes from that. We noted some deficiencies in our limited ALS medication bags. There was a couple of medications that were missing, and those will be corrected by the hospital pharmacy department. We had a lengthy discussion in regards to utilizing hospital personnel to upgrade a BLS ambulance, a basic life support ambulance, when we have an ALS or a critical care transport and we don't have an ALS ambulance available to do that. So we had a lengthy discussion of what that would look like, how that we would deal with medications for that, because there in many cases are a number of specialty medications on the critical care side of the house. Some counties actually have MICU or medical intensive care trained paramedics, critical care paramedics, and then they have separate protocols and drug boxes for those ambulances that run those type of calls. We don't do that in Hillsdale County, although we have critical care medics. Reading is the only ambulance agency that actually does those transports right now. And so we are hoping, number one, to be able to at least get Somerset up to that level to be able to do those. Somerset is doing some transport now, but one of those things is it requires having ventilators. And then again, there's some additional meds. So like I say, there was a significant amount of discussion. And Dave Ongst, you've met him previously. He is the 911 director in Lenawee County. He is the new fire chief for Addison Fire. And so he took over on that position, I believe, on March the 1st. Prevention Works met on March the 9th. That is our County Substance Use Disorder Coalition. Plans are filling out very nicely for Experience Wellness. It's going to be held at the Senior Center on April the 22nd from 12 to 4. I would encourage all of my fellow commissioners to attend that event. Sounds very interesting. They're going to have a number of vendors. Some of those will be relaxation techniques, some massage therapists. I believe they will be doing some massage therapy there, so good opportunity for that. Sounds like a really nice event, and we'll be showcasing a number of coping mechanisms for people who might be currently working with various forms of substance use disorder. We had a student group that raised $500 for creating the startup of a program called Vets in Java. This is specifically targeted to veterans who might be dealing with substance use disorder issues, and basically it's an opportunity for them to get together and meet over coffee with their peers and a person who will facilitate that discussion within that group. And again, hopefully help them work through some issues in that arena. There is a prevention conference in Mount Pleasant, May 3rd to 4th. Anyone who is working in the prevention arena with those people with substance use disorder programs, We do have funding that is available, so if anyone is interested, or if as far as in your district or various boards that you sit on, if anyone is interested in attending that, Prevention Works does have some dollars through Mission, which is the Mid-State Health Network, to be able to fund attending that conference for the hotel and the registration for it. And that is on May 3rd to 4th in Mount Pleasant. And Tim Dixon, who is our youth home administrator and our probate court referee, youth referee, he was in attendance for the first time, and he was very impressed with the coalition and look forward to having him work with us in the future. The Security Committee met on March the 10th. Mental health first aid training. Shannon, you're still back there. Thank you very much to Lifeways for making that available to us. That will be held on June the 7th and 15th at Lifeways. If you are interested in attending, it's an all-day session, and I had the opportunity to attend that several years ago when Lifeways had hosted it previously. It's very, very good. It's designed for anyone, not mental health professionals. It is designed for any person, just in people that they might come in contact with in their day-to-day life, on how to help them if they might be facing a mental health crisis. So there will be no cost for that, and if you are interested in attending, we will have a sign-up, much as we did with CPR training in the past, but you can reach out to Sarah over at Circuit Court, and she will get you on the list for that.
What was the date again, please?
It is June the 7th and 15th,
Okay.
and we need to know by May the 1st.
Now, do you need to attend both sessions? Or
No, just one. It's
Just one?
Just
Okay.
one. Yep, just
Okay,
one.
so it's 7th or?
Right, yep.
Okay.
Yep, 2 days.
All right, very good. Thank you.
So, thank you. We did have a reminder from the courts that filming and taking pictures is prohibited in any areas under the control of the court, so that would be the district court or the courthouse annex building, as well as the historic courthouse. It does include the offices of the county clerk. The subject came up because there is a group called First Amendment Auditors. They will come in and try to elicit a reaction by filming, and we've had some interaction with them here in the county in the past. I believe the clerk's office has had some interactions with some members of that group. And so again, by court order, court rules, that filming and photography is not allowed in court facilities. The reminder also, though, is that this building and other buildings, such as MSU Extension, that are county buildings, they are open to the public. And so that you might encounter these individuals, they do have a right to be here. It is their First Amendment right. But do remember that in many cases that they are trying to elicit responses and videotape it. So consequently, you do want to be very cautious in any interactions that you might have with members of those groups.
Brad, to that point, I think the most recent one, and I know I called you, was at the medical examiner's office or the morgue.
Yep.
And so, and you're absolutely right, they were trying to get a response. Sarah and her team up there handled it pretty well. Unfortunately, there happened to be a couple family members there because of a deceased loved one, and it just created more anxiety for them. So, they have the right, but yet they don't know some of the implications that they cause. In that particular situation, it was not good, but Sarah handled it well without getting any worse. So, but thank you.
Certainly, thank you. All right. Commissioner Engels and I were urged by the County Security Committee to advocate the Commission move forward with the rave panic buttons. I believe that we have all received information in the past. There was a video that was sent out in regards to that. Captain Syverson from the Sheriff's Department has located a grant from MMRA that would pay for 50% of the cost of having that program for 3 years. It's a 3-year contract. It's about $12,000 a year for 3 years. So I'm going to make a motion because we were asked to bring this to the Board of Commissioners. I would move that Hillsdale County apply for an MMAR grant to purchase a rave alert system for Hillsdale County with a 50% match not to exceed $16,000, and that the Budget Committee be directed to determine what account the match is to be allocated from.
Motion on the floor to do we have support? I believe your motion's gonna die for lack of support.
All right, thank you. Like I say, I was asked to bring that to the Board of Commissioners. And that concludes my report for today, unless there are questions.
Commissioner, back to your Medical Control Authority
Yes.
meeting transfers. I noticed there was something in there where Dr. Wells mentioned the need to create a committee to discuss the ongoing need for transfers. Heard recently that Addison is no longer doing transfers from Hillsdale Hospital.
So that has been an ongoing staffing issue. So
I mean,
right now, Somerset and Reading are the two agencies that are on the transfer calendar, that they actually staff a transfer card.
okay, but I was at Wright Walton the other day and they received a call from the hospital and responded to transport a patient to another facility as a transfer.
Correct.
The staffing issue is persistent with all of the emergency providers in the county, correct?
That's correct.
Do we have a contract with Addison Ambulance?
We have a contract, it does not provide for transfers. The only thing that is covered under the contract is emergency calls.
So they would reply to a stat transfer?
They would reply to a stat transfer, yes, because the stat transfer protocol, which is not part of our contract, the stat transfer protocol, it is a 911 call for the nearest available ALS ambulance. If an ALS ambulance is not available, a BLS ambulance is substitutable. However, the hospital must provide either a nurse or a physician to ride along and upgrade that unit to the ALS level.
And Hudson does the same?
Hudson does the same, yes. Transfers have been an ongoing issue. I actually have notes that go back to approximately 2012 with a previous medical control director and the issues with getting transfers out of the hospital. We have no agency within the county that is willing to take behavioral transfers. I can tell you, working myself in transport EMS, I work for an agency outside of Hillsdale County that doesn't serve the county. The same thing applies there, that we have a constant need. We constantly are looking for crews to come in, and especially on long distance transfers, number of hours away, because in many cases they can take an ambulance out of an area for 8 hours. There's a facility that I have transported patients to that's south of Chicago. By the time you get there, you give your report, get patient offloaded, get back to your area, you can easily spend an entire shift doing those transfers.
Any other comments or questions?
The final thing there regarding the grant was looked at by the Sheriff's Department. We have a grant policy in this county, correct?
Correct.
Was that grant policy followed in regards to that, looking at that grant?
The grant policy was not followed, correct. Because it has to have a match brought forward from a budget, and there has to be approved to apply for any grant that requires a match.
And that's a tax match, it's not a in-kind match dealing with space or staffing to take care of administering that grant, correct?
That is correct. That point was brought up when the grant was discussed at Security Committee, that anytime that there is a cash requirement, that it must, to apply for that grant, that it needs to be run through budget. We need to have an allocation for the dollars, and applying for those grants has to be approved by the Board of Commissioners. I believe that policy, Derek did send out the grant policy, the resolution on that. I believe that was passed in December of 20.
Yeah, it's 20-117, and it's only about 4 sentences, but prior to submission, all grant applications must be reviewed by the finance director. All reporting requirements of the grant must be specifically stated as to who will be responsible for the reporting and as to the timeline of the reporting requirements. Any grants requiring financial matches must be pre-approved by the Board of Commissioners, and all grant funding must be accepted to the county by the chair of the board. So that's the policy.
There's some concerns in the budget committee with the language, because when it says all grants requiring financial matching, can be construed to include space and the staffing work that's done by the clerk's office and other departments to oversee and pay for the funds out of those grants.
Well-
The budget committee will be working on some revisions to that grant policy.
Well, I would also question, as long as you're gonna bring forth a revision, the first sentence says all grant applications must be reviewed by the finance director. That last sentence, grants requiring financial matches must be pre-approved by the board. Then that same sentence says all grant funding must be accepted to the county by the chair of the board. Well, that's a little, if the grant's been pre-approved by the finance director, then before it's accepted, are we talking about the match being pre-approved? I mean, when is the pre-approval process? That needs to be cleaned up.
Yeah. It
So I think,
Also, one of the issues has been where we have had dollars come in and the finance director has been unaware. We may not have an account set up for those dollars. So we need to have, and that's part of the reason why we need to have advance notice. Derek needs to be in the loop on that, because we need to have an account for that money to go into. We have to have him aware to be looking for those dollars. So,
well, the very first sentence is critical,
right.
because that puts Derek in the mix right away. So before any grant is applied for, finance director has to be involved.
And that needs to be perhaps clarified, because there has been some question about that, whether or not that is any grant or a grant that requires a match. Because we have had grants applied for that don't require a match with no knowledge of the finance director.
And I think the language there says all grant applications must be reviewed by the finance director. So, there again, going back to having the account set up, being, aware when the money comes in, it should apply to all grants regardless of match. So, and I know Brad and I have talked about bringing this up at this month's department head meeting as well. So,
Just advise them that, right, we will be working on some revisions to that.
correct.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for Brad or Brad's report? All right. Brent?
All right. So Commissioner Ingles is not here this morning, and a lot of the things that were underneath his report deal with finance and the budget as well. So we're going to start out here. And I guess I want to start out with the item underneath my discussion, the courthouse restoration funding. We have approved a vast amount of funds already for the courthouse restoration work. Randy is here, he could probably tell you better off the top of his head than I could for those figures. One of those contracts, though, that we have approved has not been signed yet. That was the contract for the main courthouse block work with Renaissance. I do believe that estimated cost on that was 2.75.
2.947850.
Okay.
Now that was the one that we approved to go ahead
We approved
pending.
contingent upon securing funding for that work.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. In addition to that, we have an estimate before us that we'll be discussing here a little bit regarding the windows. I passed out to everybody copies of numbers that County Treasurer Kaiser had received from her bonding reps that she works with, and she had actually gotten these originally back in January, and I had shared those with the commissioners at that point in time. I just printed a copy. I have asked the treasurer for updates to those, and she indicated that that as far as the cost for, depending on the proposal that we go with, and I'll get to you here in a minute too, Randy, on the cost that we go with, or the avenue that we go with, if we go with the bonding route, whether it be a bank request for proposal, or if we do a competitive sale, what those costs would be to secure the bonding. And then you can see there, and we had looked at a $2 million bond amount on a 10-year, 15-year, and 20-year payment schedule. And you can see the cost and the interest rates associated with those. In discussing with the finance director and Commissioner Engels at the budget committee level, we feel that there is a better avenue, a potentially cheaper cost to the county to go in securing the funds to finish the work that needs to be done at the courthouse. That avenue is the same avenue that was used to purchase this building that we're sitting in today. And that would be to borrow the additional funds that we need from the building inspection fund equity balance. I'm waiting to see what the facilities director gave me here today.
That's in accordance with the windows.
Okay. This number is not incorporated into the spreadsheet that is in the agenda as far as our anticipated cost. We would have to look at that there. But we fully believe that we can borrow up to $1.8 million from the building inspection department fund balance. Look at a 15 or 20-year payback on those funds. And the county general fund could financially afford that payback and maybe even have the capability of paying it back sooner. Talking with the building inspection director, Mr. Taylor, he thinks that would be acceptable there, and he anticipates even potentially growing that fund balance in the building inspection department in the coming years with a couple of the potential construction projects that will be occurring here in the county with the Meyer store and gas station that will be going in out at the north end of Hillsdale, and then the talk of this large solar farm that's going to be going in out between on the west side of Jonesville, between Jonesville and Allen. So I would move that the county proceed with the process of borrowing up to $1.8 million from the building inspection fund to finish the courthouse exterior renovation projects.
Is that a motion? I will support that motion for purposes of discussion. So my question, Commissioner, and first of all, let me compliment you and thank you for your work on finding a funding source. The first thought that strikes me is we've already had our first change order in that project on the courthouse, which was $300,000. My concern is, as we move forward, we will have additional costs, additional change orders. We have a contingency built into the project. I just want to make sure before we lock ourselves into a dollar amount. And obviously, if we're borrowing money internally, we can always change our mind on that. It's not like that we're spending money for bond counsel, so it's a little bit different there. So I think that we do have some flexibility taking this course, but I just want to make sure that we have a good handle on what our total cost of the project is going to be, and I just want that to be
And
brought out and discussed.
And prior to discussing those funding mechanisms, we talked with the facilities director, and other than the scaffolding issue between Renaissance and whoever we use for the window project, the facilities director felt quite surely that with the contingencies that we've already got built into those bids that we have accepted, and with what they've gotten opened up, with the taking the gutters off and stuff, that didn't foresee potentially much additional change order costs.
The biggest expense in change orders, I think, were past. There might be some smaller ones, but I don't foresee any more large ones like that, because we've actually opened up the eaves, actually seeding the rust, actually, So the very first part of this is actually the most expensive, because this is where they're discovering everything. Now it's just a matter of repairing that and going forward.
The disadvantage to borrowing from within also, Commissioner, is that money is invested right now for the county, so we would lose some interest revenue to the county, which is not as much as what borrowing on a 10-year note at 3.75% or 4.25% cost would be to the county should we borrow from an outside source.
Well, that reflects my second thought, because my crystal ball for the next 10 or 15 years is kind of foggy. If I could see the future, I probably would be doing something a lot different than what I do for a living. But that is my concern, is that we do have investment revenue on that, and just as long as we go into this with eyes wide open, that if we have a bond, we know what our rate is going to be for 10 or 15 or 20 years. We don't know what the loss of investment income will be for the same period of time. So in other words, if we can borrow money at 4%, but interest rates go up, and probably because of the happenings in the financial market in the last several days, that the Fed may back off a little bit on raising interest rates for at least the short term. But in the long term, we have been at historically low borrowing rates. The rates that we're seeing here in this bond schedule is a whole bunch more than what we saw even a year ago. However, that is my only caveat to this, and sometimes that's the risk you take. But I just want to have that discussion again, that we are trading a source of funds which potentially is a lower borrowing cost because of the loss of what we can get on the investment on it. But we are also balancing that against that we don't know what the value of that will be over the next 10 years, where we know what the cost would be if we were to borrow in a bond form.
The benefit of, though, Commissioner, and like you said, if down the road we need to change that avenue, we have that capability where we could go out and secure funding, and those funds would come back to the building inspection fund that could then be reinvested in earn interest for the county. But when this building was bought, there was zero interest paid on that loan from the county to the building inspection fund. So we're going from, at a minimum of 3.75% to zero interest. That's a beneficial savings to the taxpayers of Hillsdale County, even though we're losing on that investment income of those dollars. For the short period, it's what's going to be the cheapest cost long-term for the residents of our county.
I believe this building was paid back in a 4-year time
It
frame.
was set up for 5.
Okay,
There was enough revenue that it was paid off early.
okay, I just wanted to, so it's potentially possible, regardless of how we set this up, 15,
Correct.
we could pay it off early if we had
If
enough.
you look at a 15-year amortization, the county is currently making an extra $80,000 payment to Lifeways. That we've got one more year on that. We currently have a loan to pay for the HVAC system at the courthouse. We've got one more year on that, and that's about $132,000. So just those two, when those two are retired, we provide the funding to more than cover the payback on this borrowing from the building inspection fund.
Steve?
My only concern is we've got other projects coming up too. And how's this gonna affect financing on our other projects? With the sale of the annex building and having to move the court system over to Carrot Drive. There's some concerns there about that. So how's that gonna affect our ability to move around financially there?
Any borrowing we do, whether it be from internally or externally to finish the courthouse project, will have an impact on what we can do for other projects within the county. The kind of the timeliness of looking at this right now, and Director Finley can talk about this here now or in a minute, is if we're going to go ahead with this lower portion of the courthouse work, the contractor needs to know that so that they can start securing the stone that they're going to need to fix that damage. And now is the time to start looking at that. The funds in the building inspection department, we cannot use just for any other project within the county because the statute regarding the building inspection funds are highly regulated as to what those funds can be used for.
Okay.
That's why we can't just use those funds to remodel another building. It has to be a loan to the county general fund, and the county general fund
Okay.
has to pay that back to the building inspection fund. Because of what statute says, those building inspection funds are authorized to be used for.
Okay.
Borrowing at this point in time would, though, tie up that surplus of the building inspection fund to prevent and would not allow us to borrow
Right.
from that for some of these other projects down the road. But there again, we would have the capability of
What's going back?
going back, securing that outside funding at that point in time.
I do think it is a relevant point too in regards to, because we do have a surplus that accumulates in that fund that we have not raised building inspection funds for a long, long, long time.
Well, Marty's actually decreased the permit fees.
Right. So,
On a couple occasions.
for the people on the YouTube and the audience, I want them to understand that this is, not a slush fund that we are just simply allowing to create by the collection of the projects that we have going on within the county. We have actually worked very diligently to keep the cost of that for new construction down, because the value of new construction to the county is, as far as the economic development factor on it, is something that we want to encourage, not discourage, by having high building inspection fees.
I believe we have a motion still on the table. Would you please read the motion?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. I can't write as fast as what he talks. The county to borrow 1.8 million from the building inspection fund to finish the courthouse exterior project. Is that the?
And that should be up to 1.8 million.
Yes.
Up to, okay.
Thank
And
you.
just for point of clarification, with the terms of repayment to be specified later?
Yep,
Do you want that as part of your motion?
yes. And because we don't know for sure that we're gonna even need the 1.8.
Right, exactly. So,
Okay. That's a good,
We would hope
Yeah.
that some of those bids that we have accepted don't need the contingencies that were added to
Mhm.
them, and so.
right.
okay. All right, any further discussion on the motion? Since it's a money issue, I think we'll do a roll call.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing,
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger,
Yes.
Commissioner Engels absent, Commissioner Lanius.
Yes.
Passes 4 with 1 absent. Please continue.
With that being done, I would move to authorize Commissioner Wiley to sign the contract with Renaissance for the masonry work on the main body of the courthouse for a bid cost of $2,947,850.
I'll support that.
Thank you.
That was the bid that was approved earlier this year,
Right.
contingent upon finding funding. We've got the funding, now we want to authorize you to get that contract signed.
And that contract is in Randy's hand.
Mr. Chair.
Please, go ahead.
Thank you. And again, I want to thank the budget committee for their work on finding a source. I have voted previously against signing this contract because we did not have a funding source. Now we have a funding source in place for it, have money in hand, and so that is why I can support the resolution, have the chair sign the contract, and we'll be voting for it. So thank you again for your work, Commissioner Weiner.
Further comments?
Would you like both of these motions in a resolution format for the next meeting?
Yes. We should follow both of these up with the resolutions in consent,
Okay.
assuming this motion passes.
Yes, I understand.
All right, the motion is to sign this contract for the remainder of the work there at 2.9, or not the remainder, but the masonry work, 2.927850.
That's 4-7?
Yeah, 2,927,850. And no cents.
For some reason.
Derek had it wrong on my Excel spreadsheet.
I'm hearing this wrong. Okay.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Roll call if we can.
Okay, I'm fine with that too.
Okay. Commissioner Benzing?
Yes.
Commissioner Leininger?
Yes.
Commissioner Engels absent, Commissioner Lanius?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes. All right.
Now we have one other thing to look at in the courthouse, and that is the window bids, and we had those at our last meeting, and Director Finley is here. I will ask you, Randy, Commissioner Lanius just pointed this out to me. Your bid, invitation to bid was for 130 windows, and the Blackberry proposal that you were recommending only shows 120 windows.
I didn't go around and count them all individually. So 120 windows, 130 windows. We were probably counting the little square rectangles way up as a window, and that's not really are concerned. We're more concerned with the interior window.
Or did you count the ones in the addition that don't really need to be replaced?
That is probably more the case than not.
Okay, but we're going into a contract, and numbers are numbers.
Yes, they are.
So I would really like to see the correct number of exactly what we're having done.
We can go over and count them.
Seems simple enough, doesn't it?
So, and just back on that, Randy, I just want to make sure we're getting all of them. Because, you know, I'm hearing you say,
Oh,
well, didn't
I
have
agree.
those little tiny windows. I want to make sure every piece of glass in that building, you know, we're spending a lot of money on that building, and I don't want to hear from, you know, what do you mean you need $30,000 to, you know, fix this? I thought we fixed that 5 years ago.
The small windows I'm talking about are a non-heat window. It's just a dress window up there. Okay, if you look at the clock tower, there's some windows up there. I'm sure that's not included in this bid. But the windows that we're talking, more than likely are from the addition, just as he said. But we can confirm that.
And the windows in the addition, we're not going to do anything with, correct? Because those are,
They're fine.
they're all new windows.
Yep. 15 years ago.
Yeah. Well, in a 125-year-old building, they're new windows.
So they're very good, yes.
So,
But in addition to the window bid, we also have a proposed change order from Renaissance.
What this is, if you notice in the Blackberry bid, it does not, it stipulates in there, they have a lift in there, but it's materials only, lift. If you go over and you look at it, there is no way that you can use a lift on the windows while the scaffolding's sitting there. So they would have to wait until afterwards, and then a cost of a lift would be involved, or a cost of scaffolding would be involved, and then it's a redundancy, you know, tear scaffolding down, put scaffolding right back up again in the same places. So we arranged, John arranged for Renaissance and Blackberry to get together on site and talk it through about what they can do to make the current scaffolding work. And they worked out their differences as far as the procedural part. The only thing that we're really talking about now is the mechanical part, making the current scaffolding work for Blackberry. And in doing that, you're going to have to reconfigure some of the scaffolding. What I mean by reconfigure is you're going to have to add on extensions to get you over far enough to the wall in order to get to a window. And there's also cross members in the way, so that has to be reconfigured on every window so the work can be done. Now, Renaissance is telling us that it's strictly cost. They're not upping anything on it. They're just whatever the parts cost and whatever the actual labor costs, that's it. So that's the reason it's in the form of a change order. If Renaissance charged Blackberry, then there would be a 15% upcharge because they make money on everything they do like that, so with another company. And so that would be a more expensive route. So by doing it as a change order, we get it at virtually what their cost is, which is $72,500.
how hard of a number is that? I mean,
This one's a hard number. There
There's no
won't be
wiggle
any
on that.
change order on
Okay.
this at all.
Okay,
This is a hard number.
okay.
So Blackberry said they were going to provide whatever lift, rental, whatever they needed in.
No,
No, their bid said that if a lift is needed, that would be an additional cost.
Okay.
Right.
that is,
So what you're doing is you're looking at a project for the windows, and I rounded off up just a little bit because in that is no mention of how many board feet we're going to need for sills, that sort of thing, which is a minimal cost, but nonetheless, we've got to look at it. So I'm figuring $330,000 for the windows to have the job done.
Now, Randy, Blackberry's estimate was 240 and change.
plus if all the glass needed to be replaced, you got another 16,520.
Right.
So you're mid 250.
Plus
So
this-
you're saying 330, does that include this 72?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow your math.
Total.
Yep, gotcha.
The 72.5 for the change order to Renaissance for the scaffolding, the 240,000 for the windows, and then there were 16,000 something for if they broke every pane and, couldn't get any of them out, and they broke every last one of them. That's the worst case scenario.
So there could be a cost savings there.
Absolutely.
Yep, okay.
And there should be no surprises on this one.
Okay.
My concern is the cost of Renaissance ones.
Yeah, me too.
And I know probably some of that is going to be the engineering cost for the engineer to make sure that how they set that up meets code.
Absolutely.
And everything
They
else.
had a situation, they're working on the Kentucky State Capitol right now. That storm that we got last Friday, they got as wind down there in Kentucky, and it bent the scaffolding. So that entire project is 6 weeks behind right now because of bent scaffolding. So it's very important that you have the engineers. That was, he was telling me that was 70 mile an hour scaffolding and it got bent. So they were talking like 80 mile an hour gusts. So when you see that scaffolding up there and all the cross members and everything, especially if you've climbed the thing, it's very elaborate. And it has to be, they have their safety people in on it, and then they have to have it engineered and everything. So when you take those cross members off to put out your extension, to be able to move a window in and out, you gotta be sure. You don't want them, you don't want Blackberry working down here and Renaissance working up here, and they do something that collapses.
Yeah.
So when you start talking figures and to me, scaffolding seems so simple, but it's not.
All you do is look at what we've got over there, and it's not simple.
Yeah, shoot, you just start, stacking them, but that's not the way it
And
is.
there was more over there, but they had to take that down because of some concerns with the engineer, right?
Yes.
Because it had gone up above the,
Yeah, I did see that way up.
Yep, it was
Yeah.
all the way up,
Yeah.
and then I think 3 tiers came down.
Yeah, I was there one day, and it's like, where did it go?
I was looking forward to climbing.
'Cause I wanted to go up there.
I know, you and I were
I've been
gonna
on
go.
the inside, I want to go on the outside.
That's
of that
right.
part.
Okay, so, did you,
I would
have a
move-
motion? Not yet.
I only have one question.
Yes,
That is,
please.
Why didn't we go with double pane?
Several reasons. First of all, double pane, you don't gain that much R factor. Okay, it's very, very small R factor. And what you do gain is in 15, 20 years, cloudy windows. The seals break, and then they get cloudy and hard to see out, and then they're not that much good to you. So that's another reason. The third reason is so we keep our ambience that we have with the courthouse right now. So we're not changing up what it looks like. I mean, we're spending all this money in the roof and the dome and everything to keep it looking like it's a 100-year-old, courthouse, and then to put in the double panes. Then in addition to that, they all have to be measured. Every one of those windows is different. Every one of them has to be measured and custom made.
Randy, in looking through, you had talked about the sash weights and sash ropes, and I do see in notes in there that it allows for 4 operable windows, 2 in each courtroom, per the request of John Schelling. Operable windows will receive new sash rope. All other windows will be inoperable. So can you just help me understand, is that there'll be 2 operable ones in the probate courtroom and 2 in the circuit courtroom, and none of the other windows in the courthouse will be able to be open?
Correct.
So that's it. There'll be, out of the 100 and, how many windows did we say?
20.
120 windows. There'll be 4 that will be operable.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's for escape purposes. You'll, open the window, throw the ladder out type thing.
So those will be where those fire escape ladders we have now will probably be installed in front of those windows.
More than likely, yes. Or I'll move the ladders, one or the other.
Just one thought on that. We did have some discussions previously years ago about the windows there at the jury room because of the roof, and it creates a collection point that the ladder truck can come up to. So we might just want to have a discussion about perhaps having.
I have no qualms about where we want to put them.
Okay. That might just be
that's
as part of that discussion.
We'll do wherever we want. That's our call.
It's just that's a big flat roof right there, and it does create a collection point rather than having one at a time. You can at least get and then bring the platform, the ladder up.
Sure.
All right, any other discussion on the windows? You got a motion for us, Brent?
I move that we accept bid number 3 from Blackberry, Kalamazoo, Michigan, for the courthouse window replacement and restoration.
I will support that with the contingency of acceptance of the change order for the scaffolding.
I think for tracking purposes, we probably keep that as a separate.
That's fine. I just want.
But right. Yes, this is.
And before I send this out, if you sign it, before I send it out, I'll confirm numbers of windows.
Thank you. Do you have that BlackBerry contract?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well.
You do that.
I mean,
You want my copy?
well, I kind of hard to sign with iPad. All right, any further discussion on the windows? I think we've been beating it up. Oh, I've got this one. This is the 72,000, the BlackBerry one, Randy.
You gotta catch up to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Very good, thank you. All right. Yes, please. And we'll follow this up with a resolution as well.
Commissioner Leininger.
Yes.
Commissioner Ingalls absent. Commissioner Lanius.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes,
Commissioner Benzing.
Yes.
passes with 4 and 1 absent.
Move to approve change order number 2 from Renaissance Storage Exteriors for additional scaffolding restructuring to allow the window replacement work to be done by Blackberry in the amount of $72,500.
Support. It's quiet today.
Comments or questions on the change order of the $72,500, which addresses the scaffolding for the window? I think we've talked about
I
it.
don't like it.
Agreed. Anyone want a roll call on this, or are we good to?
I'm good with a voice vote.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 4 with 1 absent. Where do you want this signed, Randy? I'm not,
On the left side, I think, down there.
oh, the right side. This is
Excuse me.
that, this is
Right
a
side.
goofy one that's, they
Yeah,
got
right
them
side.
vertically instead of horizontally. Yep, okay, thank you. I'll get that signed and Marnie will get it back to you. All right. Brent, please continue.
Continuing on, Commissioner Ingles had emailed out to us, I believe on Friday evening or Saturday, a revision that was done, that was on Saturday, done by our legal counsel to the purchase agreement that we had been presented with, the sales agreement that we had been presented with from Hillsdale Renaissance. Legal counsel has revised that, and we have a revised real estate purchase and sale agreement that is for our review. There were many changes that our council made to that, and you can see those all in that emailed copy that, in the highlighted changes. I would move that we submit the proposed real estate purchase and sale agreement to Hillsdale Renaissance for the courthouse annex building at 33 McCollum Street. No, that's not, what is it? 49.
49 North.
49.
This is 33 McCollum.
Please repeat your motion.
Move that we present the real estate purchase and sale agreement for the courthouse annex building at 49 North Howell Street to Hillsdale Renaissance. As a counteroffer to their proposal.
Excuse me, this is sending it out to them unsigned
Right.
for them to.
Look at the changes
Yes,
that
and
council
let
made.
their attorneys go over it also, and then we're getting closer and closer.
I'll support that. Discussion.
I still want to know what the plan is if we sell the building. That's my discussion is what's the plan? Because if the plan is to go to the DHS building, great. But our legislature just increased the cost of government construction projects by probably 25% by repealing prevailing wage, or going back to prevailing wage. That probably means construction. So a $200 cost is now a $250 per square foot cost, or more. And so we don't have a plan. We own a building right now. We own another building. But if we are going to move our courts, we know it's 15,000 square foot, and we know for $100 a square foot, which is $1.5 million, we're going to get paint and paper. You know, we're probably looking at $300 a square foot to remodel that building. We're borrowing from our building fund to complete the repairs on the courthouse building. We're going to be looking 5 years down the road, if we sell that building over there, at probably spending $4 or $5 million to remodel a building out there to move the courts into it. So I just cannot, until we have a plan of where we're going to go with the courts and how we're going to pay for that, I can't sell that building, and so I cannot support giving it a counter to the offer because we don't have a plan.
I think the plan is in the process of being worked out, and the counter that this motion is just to send the counter. It's
Yes.
not, as Randy indicated, it's not signed, it's just sending them what our attorney has added, some language that the attorney has added. So if that's rejected, then it's it's done and over. But if it's not rejected and it comes back to us, I think at that time, yes, we absolutely need to plan before we vote to sell the building. This is simply just sending the counter offer back,
Still negotiating.
still negotiating. So I don't disagree, we still need a tangible plan to put our, in play, but this is kind of a precursor. But, thoughts? I know Steve wants a plan.
Yes, I do.
Can I interject?
Sure.
Since I haven't been a part of the taking minutes here, is it my understanding that you're planning on moving circuit and district court to that building? Is that the plan? I mean,
That's
tentatively.
the discussion. It's not
That's
the
the
plan. We don't
discussion.
have a plan. It's a
Yeah.
discussion.
Well,
been
let me
discussed.
interject something here. In 1998, when the Family Court Division became a part of Circuit Court, we got probably 75% of the filings in probate court. So we not only house the files for Circuit Court and probate court, it would almost be impossible for our office to split, which that's what would have to happen, and more employees hired because of all the diversity and other things that we handle just outside of the courts. In my mind, it's just not even thinkable to pull us away from circuit and probate. Because I know that when we were talking about moving part of our office, when Commissioner Caswell was on the board, I said, to split our office, you would have to hire 2 or 3 more people. Because, like I said, of the amount, we have so many things that we do that aren't related to the courts. And I said we'd have to hire 2 or 3 more people to shut that down. We are so very well trained as far as backing people up that we have been able to operate with a staff of 5 people plus myself and my chief deputy. So that really concerns me, thinking about moving circuit and probate over there, because they are constantly, both offices are constantly coming and getting files or having questions or whatever the case may be. And I just don't see it working.
Well, that also becomes part of that discussion with the plan.
Understandable,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
good point.
that
It's a good point.
it's very relevant that,
Mhm.
because,
The concern I have is we're spending all this money on the main courthouse. In that courthouse annex. If we're gonna keep it, is gonna be probably many millions of additional dollars that would have to be spent on that to bring that up to adequate condition to continue to operate and occupy that building going down the road. I don't see the taxpayers of this county being able to continue to maintain both of those older buildings, being the historical courthouse and the courthouse annex building. The HVAC on that is, what, 10 years old now?
Yes, maybe 11.
And when that HVAC was put in, what did that cost?
70,000.
No, they borrowed to put that HVAC in.
Well, the
Yeah.
But
HVAC
it was
and the
split between
roof.
2 buildings. It was split between courthouse and the annex.
Well, the roof and the HVAC were done at the same time over there at
No.
the annex.
No,
No?
the roof was done first, and then the HVAC was done like 4 years later.
But then we discovered that the roof had a bunch of structural damage, so we couldn't locate the units up there, so we did have to do internal work,
Mhm.
which has now resulted in a wall that we can't remove to make a room larger in that building. So-
Correct.
Well,
And I don't disagree that we're gonna have to spend money in that building. The one thing though is we don't have to spend $2 million all at once. We are gonna have to spend $3 million all at once if we move 2 courts to that building, to the DHS building. So whereas that if we, and you know what comes back to me just as a business person is somebody wants to buy that building badly. I mean, we've heard, you know, how badly Hillsdale Renaissance wants that building, and they're willing to invest a bunch of money into it. So that tells me the building has value. It's not, you know, yes, it has a lot of issues, but there are issues that obviously can be addressed and turned around and made commercially successful, or they wouldn't be pursuing it. So, and there are a whole bunch of other components that are key to that in regards to moving our courts 2 miles away. The clerks alluded to some of them. You know, we have a bunch of businesses in downtown Hillsdale that probably would be real happy to lose the lunch trade and all those other things that go along. We have a bunch of attorneys that own buildings that they walk to the courthouse now. They now would have to drive to the courthouse. I don't think they'll be taking dial-a-ride. But so, you know, and you can say, well, those are our problems, but they are our problems because they speak to issues within our community. So I'm still, I just don't see moving our courts out there is in the best interest long term. And we still, and even if they are, we still don't have a plan. We have a plan, I can move forward.
Comment, Randy?
The original purpose of this building was that annex is being sold. That's the entire reason this building here exists, is that was part of the plan that the commissioner set forward at that point in time. And the argument was at that time, it was just as expensive to redo that one as it was this one, except this one had a lot better bones. So we went this direction here. Now that we're over here, and a lot of us moved out of the courthouse, including myself, to make room over there, and so we could actually shut down the annex. And the thought behind that at the time was, one, we wouldn't have, you know, stick a ton of money into it. And you got to understand, whatever you think that one is going to cost, you can triple it, because you can't work on that one during the day at all. That has to be all after hours work. That's a premium. It's a very expensive premium. So whatever you think that's going to cost is going to be a whole lot more than that, number one. And number two is the idea was getting away from that building so we reduce our footprint. So we don't have to pay for that building and the lights and electric and so on and so forth. So all I'm saying is you're already half-life on the HVAC system already. It's coming. So you're going to keep the building, and that's fine if you choose to do that, but keep in mind to retro that one, to do anything with that one is going to be a whole lot more expensive than retroing that one out there. That's just a fact because of can't shut the courts down.
Steve?
I got a crazy idea. Solve a lot of problems, maybe. We got a new courthouse. We're gonna have a new courthouse building.
Well, I'm gonna have a redone old building.
Okay, okay. We could have night court.
Which network's gonna cover it?
Puts it all in one footprint. We can sell the annex building, unload that white elephant, put everything back in the courthouse that we just spent a lot of money on.
Yeah.
And the only people that aren't happy is the night shift.
Unless you're a night shifter. I personally like the night.
Well, you know, there's some relevance to that if you think about it all the way through. Agree, there might be some people that wouldn't be interested in that idea at all. However, it might be a solution.
Mr. Year.
Please.
Just,
Go ahead.
if I can add the historical perspective, because I'm the commissioner that brought the proposal to buy this building. So the idea was, yeah, we were gonna sell that one, but we were gonna move stuff out of there to put all 3 courts in that building. What we've learned since then, because we didn't ask the right people, and God, I'm guilty of it, because originally I wanted to put all 3 courts in this building. We didn't ask the right people. We now asked the National Association of State Courts to tell us, and we've asked the State Court Administrator's Office to tell us what the actual space needs are for the courts. And if we had asked those questions, and I'm guilty of it because I didn't ask them, that can we fit all 3 courts in that building? And the answer now that we've learned after getting a grant but still paying for half of it is we can't get all 3 courts in that building. This building certainly isn't big enough. We couldn't have gotten all 3 courts in this building, and we can't get all 3 courts into the DHS building. So, the idea that, yes, we did buy this building with the idea of selling the annex, but the rest of that story is that the idea was we were going to get all 3 courts into the historic courthouse. So that whole landscape has changed since that original plan was made. And that brings me back to, we didn't have all the information. We have a lot better information today. We know we can't get all 3 courts into one building, at least one building that we have right now. And we also know we don't have the ability to borrow enough money to build a building, whether it's add on to the one we've already got there, or add on to the DHS building, or build a whole new building. We don't have the ability to borrow enough money to build a big enough building. So we got to figure out what the best use of the things that we have right now are.
Man.
By all means.
I know you're talking about 2 courts out there, but why not just move district court out there with all their files? Do you realize how many files that we have that in our office? We have the attic just about full. We have the basement, the one coal bin, I think where it used to be, is full, and including our vault. So, and the DHS people are going where you don't know yet, correct? Could you facilitate and rent them space out there? And then just put district court out there and leave probate and circuit? Because I know the judges would not be happy, having the probate and circuit out there with, because there's not room for us there too, our whole office. It's my understanding. I don't know.
The preliminary sketches were a presence for the clerk, but not.
But what about all the files?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's massive because we have no way to scan things. Nothing is scanned. Everything is hard copies. So that's just my thought.
Meanwhile, we've still got a motion on the floor to send the
unsigned counteroffer back to Hillsdale Renaissance.
further discussion on whether to send it back to see what they say. So, the motion, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
I think it's hung.
Failed.
The way I heard it, it was 2-2 with one absent, so that is not going anywhere today.
And that was Commissioner Lanius and
I believe
Commissioner Waddington?
Steve was no, and Brad was no, and
Oh, Brett.
Brent and I were yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right,
Brett, you done with that?
I believe so.
all right. Thank you, Randy. All right, Brent, please continue.
One final thing, last week, Derek didn't get it done in time, but he had emailed out for the month ended January. An expense summary as to where we were year to date.
I didn't receive a copy of that.
At that point in time, with 8.3% of the year passed, we were at 6.6% of expenditures. Now there were still some work to be done in journal entering some expenses that were maybe prepaid in 22, getting those moved to 23, and maybe some expenses that were paid in 23 that needed to be journal entry back to 22 that were 22 expense. There are some things that, and Commissioner Lanius, I don't know if you've seen one of these before, but there's always going to be some categories that generally will trend higher than the year-to-date budget amount just because of when payments are made. See, one of those is MSU's cooperative extension. We have a annual contract with them. We pay them on a quarterly basis. That first payment was made in January for the first quarter of the year. So looking at a cash expenditure there, we are over budget, but that will get corrected as we move forward throughout the year. Does anybody have any questions on that January expenditure summary report?
Pretty early in the year.
Yeah.
You know, having some overages at this point is kind of expected. We get to June and we got overages, I'll probably have more questions.
Well, we will still have some overages even in June.
We always will.
Health insurance generally is an overage because you're paying a month in advance for the next month worth of coverage.
Well, and MSUE is always paid
Well,
quarterly.
I mean,
But-
so at the end of June, we should be approximately right, but yes, depends
Right.
on if the clerk's office receives that invoice in June and pays it in June and not till the first week of July or so. As many of you have heard, we did receive more recreational marijuana tax money than what we had budgeted for, but the budget committee is worried about just going and spending those additional dollars till we get through the year, figure out if we may need some of those to contribute to our capital improvement fund, or to look at some of the other expenses that may come up in the county this year.
That was $410,000 is my understanding.
Oh, you can have that.
Around 414, I do believe, Commissioner, because it was about $125,000 more than what was budgeted. My question on that continues to be, when do we get to the point of diminishing returns? The city of Reading saw that happen this year.
Yeah.
They had 3 licenses a year ago, they had 3 licenses this most recent year, and their revenue from that decreased about $15,000 because the per licensee payment back from the state decreased that $5,000 per licensee. So I know there's talk of another licensee coming in Jefferson Township.
Hey, Mr. Lockwood's here. You got one more, you got a licensee, dispensary license granted, correct? They haven't built out?
The one down in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so there will be one additional one in Pittsburgh.
Saying there's 2 additional ones authorized now in Village of Montgomery. So we might have a decrease at one place, but you're gonna have some additional. So, yeah, as far as diminishing return for the county, when does that happen?
When does that happen?
Yeah.
So,
And when do 3 additional licensees still get offset because statewide there's numerous additional licensees, licenses that are issued, but that tax revenue is just only going to be so much. So that is all. Oh, I do believe the finance director is getting close to hiring his employee that was authorized down there. He's had a couple of interviews and was getting ready to make a decision on that, I do believe, so. The personnel committee should be notified of that when that happens.
Very good.
Any questions for Brent? Okay. I got one item I wanted to share, and then I'm gonna turn my time over to Matt. There is another PACT Act. There was one held here a month and a half or so ago. This one will be held April 22nd at 10 a.m. The American Legion Post 53, and that's on Steenberg Road, April 22nd at 10 a.m. And that's, you know, to help veterans with Agent Orange, other toxic substances, Camp Lejeune claims, etc. As I reported previously, there was about 22 that showed up here that day that it was held. So you might pass that information on at your district meetings when you go around. But anyways, with that, I will turn it over to Matt. Good morning.
Thank you.
And I believe he passed out something at your table.
Yeah, I passed out some handouts. I've got, I'd like to, I guess, take a few minutes and give the board a brief history of the maintenance program at the drain office. And we'll also talk about some cost savings that are involved with the operation of that program. So, my father was elected as drain commissioner in 1989. He served as drain commissioner for 28 years. Prior to him being drain commissioner, he was a drainage contractor. During his time as a drainage contractor, he observed how the two previous drain commissioners handled the maintenance of the county drains. He saw a need for change. He easily noticed that, little to no maintenance work was being done. Previously, maintenance work was subcontracted out like many other counties in the state. So when he took office in '89, he began working on developing a maintenance program that would be operated and staffed by the Drain Commission. His goal was to save the taxpayers money and improve the level of service and efficiency. It took him many years to develop this program to what it is today. He started out with almost nothing, not even a vehicle to drive. He told me when he took office he had a 2-inch pump and a drain jetting machine that didn't even work. Since 1989, this maintenance program has grown from virtually nothing to now the Drain Commission has 5 excavators, a payloader, a dozer, track skid steer, 2 semis, a dump truck, 2 rubber-tracked off-road dump trucks, compact loader tractor, 2 utility vehicles, 4 pickup trucks, 10 trailers, and lots of miscellaneous equipment to pretty much tackle any obstacle we are faced with, along with an 8-acre facility and a 58 by 70 maintenance building. He was very passionate and proud of what he accomplished in his time as Drain Commissioner, along with the cost savings and service he was able to provide with a fully operational maintenance program. I have been blessed with the opportunity to continue to provide such a great service to this county. But for a while now, this office has found ourselves in a crisis situation. Since January of 2022, we have only had 1 full-time maintenance employee that worked for 6 weeks. This employee had a great work ethic, but had little to no heavy equipment experience and did not have a Class A CDL. So we can't even retain unqualified people. How are we going to find and retain qualified people with the current pay we can offer? Over the years, we have always had issues with obtaining and retaining maintenance employees. Virtually every employee that leaves this office is very clear that the pay is not enough for what the position requirements are. As shown, and this is where we'll get into the spreadsheets. As shown on the first spreadsheet, the past employee work length spreadsheet, since 2017, the average length of employment is only 7 months. And that shows that on that sheet if you'd like to look at that. Furthermore, several of the employees on this list did not meet the qualifications we require, particularly heavy equipment operating experience in Class A CDL. 2 of our employees have left our office and went to work for the road commission simply because the pay was more. As drain commissioner, I am very concerned with this situation. If we cannot find qualified people, we will not be able to continue to operate this highly cost-effective and efficient drain maintenance program. I understand the board's position with not wanting to implement another pay scale while in the process of a wage/job classification study. I was told by a few of the board members that we would have to wait until the wage job classification study is done. However, with our current status of no employees, I feel we cannot wait until the study is complete and implemented. We need employees now. I was also told by a few board members that we would have to subcontract out work until this study was complete. If the Drain Commission were to subcontract out maintenance work, several issues would arise. One of those issues, costs would most definitely go up. If you look at the contractor comparison spreadsheet, which is the second one on your little packet here, it shows the increase in costs based on subcontractor rates. So what I did for this is I contacted several contractors within Hillsdale County, Branch County, Lenawee County, got their equipment rates and we put them on a spreadsheet and compared them to ours. The average cost increase would be 38%. Furthermore, the equipment usage spreadsheet, which is on the next page, shows increased costs per year. So for an example, our large excavator, over the past 10 years, we averaged 243 hours per year. At our current hourly rate for that machine, and that includes operator, is $119.64. So this comes out to a yearly cost of $29,000, $29,144.30. You compare that rate to the average of the contractor's rates on the previous page, the contractor comparison sheet, of $233.33 per hour. That yearly cost is $56,839.19, showing a cost savings to the county of $27,694.89 to utilize our own resources, which is a savings of 48.72%. So on this equipment usage sheet, this is just, that was just one of the pieces of equipment. And on the equipment usage sheet also, we only grabbed 4 of the pieces of equipment that we have for that comparison. So the increased cost of subcontractors based off the equipment usage sheet would be, just for the 4 pieces of equipment, would be $65,868.51. Efficiency would also go down. I've talked with several contractors. It is unclear how much of our workload contractors would be able to handle along with their current workload. Also, we have specialized equipment that allows us to use specifically what we need for the work that we need to do. It also allows us to further increase efficiency and return cutting down on costs. Our maintenance facility and all of our equipment is supported and funded by our equipment fund. In order to continue to have revenue for this fund, we need employees to operate the equipment. It is unclear what the balance of this fund will be if we have to wait until the wage job classification study is completed. Some of the work we do is clearing and reestablishing drain right-of-ways. Some of our right-of-ways have not been maintained since the establishment of the drain some 120 years ago for most drains. So often we go out, we clear the right-of-ways so that the tile drains do not become plugged with tree roots or clogged, and so that the open drains do not become clogged or backed up with log jams. Furthermore, so we have good access to the drains so we can keep them properly maintained. After we have cleared and reestablished the right-of-ways, our brush maintenance program comes into effect. This is a critical part of maintaining our drain right-of-ways. It is costly and timely to reestablish these right-of-ways. Without a brush maintenance program, these right-of-ways would quickly become overgrown with brush and trees, forcing us to clear them out again. The brush maintenance program has been very effective to ensure the right-of-ways do not become overgrown. We have the county divided up into 4 sections for brush maintenance. We implement our program on one of those sections each year. Last year, due to lack of staff, we were unable to implement our brush maintenance program. So in 4 years, when we get back to this section, we don't know what it's going to look like because we didn't spray anything last year. What additional work will be needed, and what will the cost be associated with that? A lot of our work is also time sensitive. The result of having to wait on an available contractor would increase costs in itself, along with further damage to the drainage system may occur from having to wait. An example of a time-sensitive situation, last week, a landowner contacted me directly. He told me that Tuttle Road, just south of Burt Road, where the St. Joe Maumee drain crosses Tuttle Road, there was a large amount of down trees and debris that had floated down and actually gotten wedged underneath the bridge, not against the bridge, underneath it. This was causing the water in that, and Commissioner Leiner, you know how large that drain is. It was causing the drain to back up about 2 to 3 foot. This landowner has flooded many times in the past when this drain becomes overwhelmed and it would crest its banks. This is a situation that 1, could not wait, and 2, would take a long-reach excavator to reach the logjam under the bridge. So Rob and I dropped what we were doing, and within less than 2 hours of this landowner calling me, we had our long-reach excavator on site to remove the logjam. Since we have our own equipment, we have the ability we basically left that machine there in case more debris and trees and stuff come down and get against that bridge. That's something I don't know how well a contractor could do, because for a contractor, if that machine's not moving, it's not making money. So I don't know how that would work out. Furthermore, I don't even know if we could find a contractor with a long-reach excavator and how soon they will be able to be out there to help remedy that situation. We've had our open positions for drain maintenance staff posted for several months now. We have not received any applications until last Thursday. I spoke with the applicant and he meets all of our requirements. However, he informed me he would not be able to consider the position unless the pay was $25 an hour. He is currently employed with a heavy equipment operators union. His current pay is $41.25 per hour. We currently can hire at $17.69, and with the 25-year pay scale, the employee would have the wage increase by $2.46 after 25 years of service. This has proven to be difficult and near impossible, to say the least, to find anyone without our requirements or qualifications, yet alone someone that meets our requirements and qualifications. With this wage job classification study already in the process, I can appreciate that the board does not want to approve to implement another pay scale. However, this is an extenuating circumstance. It is our duty as elected officials to keep the best interest of our constituents in mind. In my opinion, it is not their best interest to have all of these resources set while we wait for a study to be completed. I need something approved now, even if it is on an interim basis, until the board has completed and implemented the wage job classification study, so the Drain Commission can continue to operate our maintenance program. As Drain Commissioner of this county, I would appreciate consideration and support of this board to help remedy this situation. Thank you, and sorry it took so long.
Comments or questions? You got any questions, Steve? Brent?
No, the Drain Commissioner and I have had long conversations about this.
Yeah. I know most of the board pretty much fully aware of the situation, but I did get a chance to talk with Commissioner Lanius a little bit. I know with his not being here very long, he doesn't quite fully understand how my department operates, but I'm sure that will come with time, so.
And for those that wonder why the Drain Commissioner is here, part of the statutory responsibility that we have as commissioners is to set the wage and compensation for all employees of the county. The Drain Commissioner's drain maintenance employees, he's authorized to hire those because of action taken by this body in the past, which is a statutory requirement. In order for him to hire drain maintenance employees, the county commission had to give that approval. Those drain maintenance employees are initially paid out of the county general fund, but the county general fund is then reimbursed all of the expenses associated with those drain maintenance employees from the drain funds for the drain assessments that are levied on property owners each year because of the work that the Drain Commission does in each of those different drainage districts. Or maybe because of work that was done in the past that still has to be repaid back to the drain maintenance funds, and the Drain Commissioner is limited as to $5,000, the amount that he can levy in any 1 year on any mile of drainage district. The drainage district that he mentioned, the East Branch of the St. Joe, the Maumee, that is a 8-mile drainage district in the county. That's one of those that was established as the drain right away back in the early 1900s.
Just 60, in Hillsdale County alone, it's 60,000 acre watershed.
Yes. 1 inch rain in that watershed is going to produce about 1.6 billion gallons of water to go down that riverway. And so, in the past, this body had, back when the SEIU union was established, set the drain maintenance employees at a SEIU level 7. Commissioner Ward and I have talked, and right, to change that, this body has to take action to change that. There was some talk last year in redoing that SEIU schedule that we created a level 8. But we just heard today that even that level 8 is not sufficient for a prospective individual.
Commissioner Bonneger, how does the SEIU contract apply now that the union is, to my best understanding, no longer?
That is the wage schedule that is defined as the SEIU, or the former SEIU schedule.
So even though the union is no longer, that's still the schedule that
That is the schedule
they have to follow?
that the drain maintenance employees have been assigned to.
Okay.
And that was done by Commissioner, action. The last time that was reviewed, and I do believe they were set at the level 7 was 2000, when that last classification schedule was approved.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
I think I actually have.
Yeah.
That's a
yeah,
copy you
the-
gave
That
me.
resolution, in May of 2020.
Did you want to see that, Mark? I didn't know if you wanted to see that.
Yeah, pass that. Thank you.
So one of my main concerns is, and I don't want this to sound like I'm against our great excavating contractors in this county or neighboring county, because I'm not. We need and we have great subcontracting companies out there. We need them for petition projects because we can only technically maintain our drains with our equipment that we have, and we don't have the staff or the equipment to take on such a large project as a petition project would be. However, I do feel strongly that costs will be increased, level of service will go down, which to me seems like that would be going in the wrong direction.
So as far as, with the lack of the SEIU, even though we currently use that old scale, but I guess in your packet here, you've included the professional wage schedule.
Yeah, if there was, discussion as using that as an option to get us by, I'm open to suggestions, honestly.
Well, and I guess, I heard you say an interim, even if it was for the time being, or until the study's complete.
Right, yeah, and I'm okay with that. If the board is willing to entertain an interim wage, as long as the verbiage was in there that, that wage could be utilized until this study was completed and also implemented. And I know there's concerns about that. I'm fully aware of that. But I have my concerns as well.
You said the one individual who was tentatively interested indicated that you would need $25 an hour. If you use that rate for him, where does that put you with a chief deputy?
That rate would be pretty much about the same as my chief deputy's wage. You want to speak on that, Rob?
My name's Robert Franks, Deputy Drain Commissioner. How I feel on it, I don't care. We can pay these guys whatever it takes to get them in. Because honestly, yeah, I'm waiting for your job study. Your job study will determine if he's looking for another deputy come January or early next year. So if you pay him $25 an hour, pay these guys $25 an hour. If you pay him $30 an hour, pay him $30 an hour. And I know you're not going to that, I know you won't go that high. I'm just using it as an example. With what we're offered, we're not even in the market. And any one of you guys that have been on a drain know that we're not in the market. And I understand there's a difference between public and private, but it is what it is. To keep this program alive, something has to happen. Honestly, that's my thoughts.
Any other thoughts from the board? Mr. Benzing, any thoughts?
My only reply to you, Matt, is I understand the issue, so, but we were literally shutting down the treasurer's office for multiple days a week for lack of employees. The treasurer contracted, and is still contracting, for some of those positions. And so, as a department head, we've had other department heads come up with creative solutions for problems. We are spending $40,000+ for a classification study, and as part of that is a wage study, and to try and set wages here today or tomorrow or next week outside of that study, I think is wrong, because we made that decision to seek professional advice to find out how to classify our employees, and then at what level those employees need to be compensated at. I understand that it's unique, but I also understand we have a lot of other places in county government that are fully reimbursed positions from other pots of money that have their own independent funding sources. And we discuss the level at which we pay those people, even though they're 100% reimbursed, because we have to make that fit with all of the other employees that we have, roughly 140 full-time employees, and then multiple other part-time employees.
So all of these employees have the same requirements, qualifications, experiences, licenses to fit all together?
That's why we're having classifications, and we're trying to come up with a schedule that will fit all of those classifications. And I understand that your employees are unique, but we have multiple other departments that have a unique set of skills for their positions. Some require professional licensure, some require specialized education. So consequently, we have to have a schedule, whether it is an assistant prosecuting attorney position, which requires a law degree, and I can tell you that it's $150,000 for a law degree. So, they have to be compensated at least somehow to make that education expense up. Commissioner Laney has talked today about Southeast Michigan Works, and they have, and I've spoken with you, they have training dollars available so that perhaps that we can, much like the sheriff has instituted an academy within the sheriff's department to address the fact that he can't compete with Jackson County and Lenawee County for the levels of pay in that department, that he has instituted a program to cover the cost of educating and receiving those professional certifications. We have multiple other department heads that have addressed the issue of a lack of employees that are qualified at the level that we can pay, and they have found creative solutions to that. And that's all that we are asking you to do, is to utilize those things that are out there to try and find creative solutions to match the level of pay that we can have in Hillsdale County.
There is no creative solution to this for the pay that we can offer. I mean, if you just look at the qualifications that we require, it's pretty apparent that we don't need a consultant to tell us that the wage is not what it needs to be. And I can appreciate where the board, the end goal of this study. I think it's a great concept. We do need to know what each position is and what that pay should be and what their requirements are. However, we don't have any employees right now. And, I've sat through this whole meeting, and I think this board is very conscious about cost savings to taxpayers. I've heard from all of you say that at one point during this meeting. I have proven to you with my research that by giving me a few more dollars an hour, even on an interim basis till this study's done, I've proven to you that the cost savings by far exceeds the concerns of making an exception for me to hire people.
And I guess my response to that is how does the Management and Personnel Committee address the treasurer who has asked for a reclassification, to equalization, the Director Wheeler, who has asked for a reclassification, to the prosecuting attorney, who has asked for a reclassification, to the district court judge, who has asked for a reclassification, and they have all been told the same answer, that once the study is completed, then we will know what the answer to that is. But for the time being, that we are not changing any classifications. So they all have unique situations.
So are any of those departments currently with no staff?
The treasurer's office was using contract employees for basically all of last year.
And does that cost more than the cost of an employee? So is that an increased cost?
It is an increased cost.
So I think from what Matt has presented to us and what he has talked to me about.
I would contend on that, Commissioner. I don't believe those contract employees were an increased cost over the employee cost, because the contract individual did not receive any retirement or health insurance. So that actual cost paid there to a contractor was cheaper than what it would have cost had it been a county employee.
Thank you for the clarification.
And I can understand. Unfortunately, this board has every department to worry about. I have my department to worry about, so I don't want this to come off blunt, but all I care about is my department. You know, you guys are challenged with everyone else too. I get that. But, you know, I feel I did my homework, I've done my research, I've done my comparisons, they're right in front of you. You know, I feel I've built a good case to prove that this is a problem and it needs to be remedied, even, like I said, on an interim basis until this study is complete. So we can continue with this program. We're potentially looking at losing 33 years of work for this maintenance program. That's how long it's been around, to try and sit stagnant for 1 year to wait, when I believe the board has the ability to allow me to pay a wage that we feel is gonna give me a few employees to make it till that study's done, and that's all I'm asking.
Mother Nature is not kind when you skip years or skip, you know, as Matt has talked about his brush program as far as the ditches, Mother Nature wants to reclaim, and brush grows, and spraying is a lot cheaper than going back in there and having to root out brush or trees or whatever. As I've talked to other commissioners, I'm sure I have emailed Matt that we've got to stay on the status quo as far as until we get the comp study done. But after Matt presenting this to us, even I have a real problem with trying to tell any of my constituents within an assessment district that it's going to cost them 30 to 50% more in their assessment because Matt can't do the work, he's got to contract it out. I have a problem with telling any of my constituents that their assessment's going to be higher. And that's basically what's going to happen if Matt has to contract out. And I think even if it's on an interim basis, we need to hire this individual if he'll come on board at $25, we need to do it.
That's what he informed me, and I've also this other individual did not officially turn in an application, but he led on to, if the pay was around that $25 an hour range, he would.
And I truly think that the compensation and classification study will come back that both Rob needs to be paid higher and all those employees the two employees will need to be paid higher. The skill set alone is worth more than $20 an hour. I mean, the individual, I think one of them indicated he's getting paid 41.
Yeah, 41.25. And the other one's also in an equipment union operators union at 42 bucks an hour, so.
And any of us that have contracted either backhoe, hydro, bulldozer work anytime recently, those rates have progressively gone up. And rightly so, they should. But I think it would be negligent on our part to allow our constituents to pay more in assessments. And so with that said, I'll make a motion that we allow Matt to hire at $25 and with the understanding that this is an interim $25 rate.
My question is, what's interim?
Point of order, we need support to the motion to discuss it.
Correct.
I'll support if we say that it's through the implementation of the wage classification and salary study that's
I'm friendly with that.
forthcoming.
I think that addresses Steve's question. Further discussion?
I just want to know how we're going to go back to the prosecuting attorney's office, the district court judge, Randy Finley, Stephanie Kaiser. How are we going to go back to them and tell them we denied your request? I can't do that. I can't do that.
I can't go to my constituents and tell them they're going to pay more in taxes or more in assessment. And that's my answer to those other department heads, that this is a financial impact on my constituents. So I'm looking out for my constituents in this case. So that's my answer to that question.
And let's be honest, $25 an hour is a financial impact to our constituents.
Agreed.
Because it's higher than even the top rate currently, which was 19 something an hour, I do believe it's at level 7.
Well, no, level 7, 17, something.
The top
like-
rate.
Oh, the top, yeah, right, around 19 and some change.
Okay?
Agreed.
And that cost is still passed on to our constituents.
But it's still going to be less than the contracted rate. And I guess that's my real issue, is saving them that expense of the contracted rate when we've got the equipment. So, I mean, it's no different than if I have somebody do my plowing and my tractor's sitting in the barn. I mean, it's kind of redundant when you've got the equipment. Why don't you do it? As long as you can put a person in the seat.
At times, that's why you don't do it.
Exactly. But
Matt, how many counties contract out their work and how many do their own work of the 8?
Well, I know that the majority of counties do subcontract out. There are a couple counties, us in Lenawee particularly, that really have pretty much a fully operational maintenance program. There's several counties within the state that have some equipment, not near as much as what we have, but they do what they can. I think I get where you're going with this, Commissioner Benzing. But in my opinion, I think every county is different. We should do what works best for Hillsdale County. It's great to consider what other counties are doing. I know for a fact that this maintenance program has been around, like I said, for around 33 years, and in my opinion, it's been highly successful.
well, and to your point, Hillsdale County is unique because of the 5 watersheds. And we've probably got, on average, we've got more miles of ditches, drains, et cetera, than most counties. So, trying to compare county by county is a real challenge.
And I understand that, and I would be the first to argue that Hillsdale County is unique. I'm just simply making the counterpoint to that if the majority of counties that have drains, and I would like to emphasize, there's not 83 counties with drains, because there's actually, once you get about the Clare,
Well,
they're really,
I don't know exact numbers, but yeah, you're right. There's a few that don't. I mean, the UP has very little, but
yeah.
you know, different topography
you
up there.
can't say
but-
there's 83 counties.
Right.
The real thing is that we wouldn't be, you know, the idea that we're costing the landowners more, that evidently isn't the case in other places. So yes, we have a big investment in equipment here, but we also have, as you said, if you know the piece of equipment isn't running, if the wheels aren't turning on my truck, I'm not making any money. So if a piece of equipment sits for 50% of the time, that the cost of that piece of equipment and the cost to have it and utilize it is double versus a piece of equipment that's used every day.
Right. I guess to comment on that,
I mean,
Yeah.
I would really have to do some research, but, you know, historically, these drain offices in various counties throughout the state, that was the practice from day one, from when that office was established, to subcontract. So it's, you know, I think that's how it's always done, that's how they continue to do it. In some counties, I don't think it is practical to have a maintenance program like we do. I've given lectures and seminars, speeches at our annual drain conferences multiple times about our program, because other counties envy us. Ask Branch, ask Calhoun. They all think the concept is great. You know, I can't speak for Branch or Calhoun, but I think a lot of the problem in certain counties that look into this is getting Board of Commissioner support. Because getting a program like this started is not easy. I was just a young lad when my dad got this going, but he fought tooth and nail, and he stood his ground, and he knew that this program was worth the effort. And now, 33 years later, it's highly cost effective and highly efficient.
And I don't think that we're asking for you to abandon that, and there certainly is
No,
consideration that
I understand that.
that we want the program that is established to go away. I'm just simply speaking to the idea of contracting out work that we can't get done until we reach the point where we have back the study that we are paying for, and that we are not setting precedent, because you are correct, you only have to deal with your office.
Yeah.
We have to deal with all of them.
I appreciate that, and I know you're not asking me to abandon it, but abandoning it might be what happens to try and span that year. Because like I told you and the rest of the board, I talked to a few contractors. One example, I had one a few months ago, well, probably 6 months ago. He was going to clean 2 small open ditches for me. He's only done 1 so far. In 6 months. These are half-day jobs. So what's going to happen, you know, if I can't even get the contractors to do the work, you know, where are we going to be at in a year? That's my concern. Nobody knows, to be honest with you, because this is uncharted territory for me to subcontract maintenance work out. I've never done it before.
Well, it wasn't too long ago, you gave us your report, and within that report is the number of miles of drains, ditches, et cetera. And, you know, skipping, you're coming into your busy season, and I guess you've got a couple people that have shown some interest, or at least one for sure. You know, if you don't have people in place, and it sounds like contractors are not the solution, from what you just said, then we lose a whole year's worth of maintenance. You know,
It's hard to recover from that.
exactly. It's almost as bad as these fields that are in CRP that were supposed to be kept mowed, and now they're all grown up to
Right.
sumac. You know, Mother Nature wants to reclaim things very quickly. And I guess I would ask the budget chair if since he supported the motion, if we were to vote yes on this, for Carol and keeping everything on a scale, the 1-year rate on the managerial scale is 25-21. If, since you supported the motion, if you'd be friendly to that.
That's the level 9 rate?
8,
Level 8 rate
level 8, 1 year.
is 25-21. That way, that would at least keep them on a scale instead of just having an arbitrary number.
Level 8, year 1.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You're friendly with that? Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? If there is none, we'll take a roll call.
Commissioner Ingles absent. Commissioner Lanius.
No.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes.
Commissioner Benzing.
No.
Commissioner Leininger.
Yes.
Fails.
Fails. 2, 2, and 1.
Okay, appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matt. All right. That brings us back to public comment. Would anyone like to address the board at this time? Laura?
I just wanted to make the commissioners aware of a request for proposals that we learned about for establishing self-help center sites in Michigan. These are legal self-help centers, and depending on a grant proposal, could be anything from, you know, a staffed office to a kiosk. To my knowledge, there's no financial commitment involved on the part of anybody seeking these grants, but we do think this would be an excellent way of serving some of our lower income population in the county. So we're going to be looking into this further. Just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Anyone else wish to address the board?
What Matt had to say, thank you, sir.
Morning, Bob.
Good morning. What Matt there, Drain Fisher, listened to every word to it. And yes, we've been out to several of the different culverts and the things that one of those that happened out in, I believe, Mark, you were at Cambria, discussion on that road, or I mean, that culvert. I think there was 2 of them, or 70 footers. And, you know, it was not going to get done. Again, you know, if we don't look at down the road, we're going to have somebody that's definitely going to say, we can't have a road commissioner, we might as well just subcontract everything out to another county. Brad, your crystal ball, sometimes, and to me, to watching and seeing and listening to what you had to say, you know, don't shake it up too much. It gets a little cloudier, and it's what you said, but I hope that it'll, you know, kind of let the flakes all settle down. That means nothing more than a little fun. To Marty Cass, I have a subpoena for you that is in regards to this small basket of suckers that don't have any rubbers in them. It's really ticking me off. I just got to let you know that. I had
Those suckers come out of my pocket, just to be
You guys
clear,
are
so
so
the commissioners know.
Well, anyway, the next is and to try to get a little more interest in what has happened over at North Adams Township. My question is that it seems as though that the county has a tendency to put blame on somebody or something, and then it gets promoted through the radio or wherever else, the newspaper, and it never is completed. Just they're not arrested, or there's not a claim to it. I was very concerned about Stephanie Scott's position, simply that, you had taken it over. And that concerns, is that going to be something that you're going to find violations in other townships? And then try to finalize it to try to take over other townships? Or is that something that's just a one-time happening? I guess it doesn't matter, but I think it concerns those people in North Adams. I know that there's a recall simply because all of this had happened. I don't believe that it should have been a reaction to having, if that person had done something, was put in that jail, or definitely had a felony charge against them, I would put everything in regard to that up in front. So if you can and sometime speak on that, I would appreciate that. I can't really see where the courthouse issue is. I would hope that we could do something. I don't think it would be very accommodating for, the district court. This has been going on. I've been coming up here since, I don't know how long, and since it got, put back together. It was also that this was going to be the court. And now, of course, it's not. Now where are we going to stand with another cost? That court should have been at what reason was when Bruce Caswell was sitting here, that we were also looking at nothing more than about 9.5 and getting close to 10 million. Where are we at now? It's going to be something to watch. So the due diligence of things. I'm really watching now is, on another subject, is this aquifer. That's going to become very important. In fact, a lot of the stores are really packing up a lot of bottled water. Noticing this. Now, does that mean that we are not efficient enough? When you go back to 1835 and you look at that border between Ohio and Michigan, a good fight took place. I know it's silly to bring it up, but that either belonged, that small strip going over to sleep was ours, or we gave up the direction going to the west. It's not their water, it's the people's water. And we can't allow this to be drainage. We just got done with Phoenix. We just looked at the Colorado River. Even though they got so much rain and snow, it's depleted. Phoenix doesn't have enough water coming in. And I see that you're looking at my time. You can get me every time. Anyway, I don't want to kick that down the can, but kick that down the road. But certainly look at this alternative. I don't think this governor has done anything to intervene. And what should we then, out here in Hillsdale, possibly put in our own pump? Should we not get our own so that we can supply ourselves? If we looked at that, what is it, the rearing ponds, I think was brought up by a cost by Bruce Caswell, about $4 million or something in that neighborhood to redo those. We could use that water, if he did drench it, to pump it out, to bring it to the Hillsdale rep, if we were failing in that. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for, this has been very interesting to listen to you guys, and have a great day.
Thanks, Bob. You have a good day as well. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time?
Mark
Mark?
Nichols, Adams Township. I guess you can't come without saying something. It's going to be a little bit double-edged sword, I expect. First, I do want to thank you for serving. You guys deal with a lot of different things. I don't know if there was a little more conservatism on this board, if you could get rid of any of that. I don't know. You guys would have a much better clue dealing with it. But thank you for serving. That's a very, very small minority of people that do that, that go to the effort to even run. There's a lot of problems in Hillsdale County, and unfortunately, right here in this room is the cause of some of those problems. And if anybody's paying attention, I think they can guess pretty well about what I'm referring to, and I won't say more on that matter. Well, that people to dig into things. And I gotta say it's disappointing because, when you hold office, you interact with people in other office, and you have a relationship that other people don't really have. But some of you have really, really disappointed me. That's all. Thanks.
All right, Mark, thank you. Anyone else wish to talk to the board or address the board? All right, thank you all for coming. Additional business, Brent?
None.
Steve? I have a couple items that I wanted to mention, and I know Brad had emailed with Gregory Moore from Consumers Energy, and he's kind of their personal relationship or customer relations. I believe everybody got an email. There's a couple of like town hall meetings. They're both scheduled in Jackson County, but
No, one's Jackson and the other one is, not Jackson, it was, or was
yeah, if you,
up in Dearborn at Fordson High School.
okay,
And that's scheduled by the Michigan Public Service Commission,
okay.
is what those town halls for.
But I do know that he has been very responsive. I know he responded to Brad's email about service during that storm. We actually had a broken pole that they had bypassed. They had restored power, but they didn't fix the pole, and he was, within 24 hours after me emailing him, a crew was out there and got the pole. So I just wanted to mention, I think he's I don't know how long he's worked for Consumers Energy, but he's been responsive.
He's a former county commissioner as well.
Okay, okay. And then I know Doug has mentioned to me that Hillsdale City, you know, I declared a local state of emergency on that day of the ice storm on February 22nd. That was processed. The governor didn't do anything. I've contacted Andrew Fink to see if he can get any. Basically, what we were looking for is if the governor recognized that, my understanding from talking to Thomas is that we could possibly recover some of the overtime and related expenses. And I know BPU as well as the city of Hillsdale incurred, and I think the city of Jonesville incurred quite a few costs. So just a quick update on that, and I know I've told Doug to express that to City of Hillsdale, is that I've pushed it up to Andrew Fink. I sent another email yesterday seeing if there's any update, but that's all I've got on that. But additional business, Brad?
Thank you. In first public comment, we had a constituent express concern about discontinuation of the treatment court. I am not aware of that in any way, shape, or form. We have a number of specialty courts, our veterans court that we have established. We have our drug treatment court. I am a strong advocate. They used to have in Jackson County, and Shannon's left us. It is now actually gone because of the retirement judge. They were a mental health treatment court. Those specialty courts do an absolutely phenomenal job. And I would never, ever support this body defunding them. So I've not heard anything in that regard. So I was actually quite surprised about that. Laura, you're shaking your head as well. So I don't know what the basis for that was, but I do want the public to know that there, at least as public safety and judiciary, there's been no discussion that has been directed at myself in regards that and I will always advocate for the continuing because they do great work. So, and then the other comment that I had was in regards to our term limits policy, that evidently it is not working, and so consequently I will probably be visiting with our fellow commissioners in regard to either revising that policy and or repealing it. I am a strong advocate whenever we have laws or rules that we don't follow, whether they're no longer necessary or we just simply aren't complying with them, we should get rid of them because we are a nation of laws. So consequently, I will be visiting with you in regards to that. Thank you.
Very good. With that, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.